Welcome to the Gray Range Podcast. My name is David Rousseau. We're going to explore the poetry of how we live, how we learn, and how we find our way along this strange path we call life. If you're curious about people, their stories, and all things savage and wonderful, then join me on the Gray Range.
Button.
All right. And we're live again.
Sweet.
On the Gray Range Podcast. With myself, David Roussel, and my co-host, Lucas Orch. And today we've got my good friend, Dustin Goodheart, with us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming, man.
That's pretty awesome.
Thanks for coming, man. When I was originally putting together like the original guest list for this thing, because, you know, when I had a friend of mine, it's like, hey, you should have a podcast. And I was like, how am I going to have a podcast? What would it be about? What would I do? And then I started to kind of put it together and kind of thought about a theme. And then I was thinking about it. I was like, wow, I've actually met a lot of interesting people. And there's also a lot of people who they are different than when I knew them before. Right?
That's why I'm here, right?
everybody kind of goes their own way in life and figures out their own way through the struggles and through the problems and all that stuff. And I think it's really cool having those conversations about like, hey, where did you start? Where'd you come from? How'd you end up where you are? And I think in that, there's a little bit of poetry in that, in how people figure out how to live life, but there's also some wisdom there. And that's kind of what's worth capturing, because, you know, when other generations come along, you know, everything that's digital these days. So
it's crazy, man. You see kids walking down the street now looking straight at the ground or straight at their. I'm surprised there's not more kids getting hit walking across the road, you know, not paying attention to what they're doing.
I was joking about that this morning with some guys who were talking about what the hell's that game? Pokemon. Guys are they're trying
Pokemon Go.
They're trying to chase a Pokemon, and they're fucking like walk off a cliff, or they're driving and like drive into something, and you're like, okay.
Well, now with the Apple virtual reality, the VR glasses, so people are walking around now not in reality, and we used to call that like homeless people, but now they're just like wandering around, and I'm like, this isn't going to go well, because someone's eventually, like, if you're sitting there on a subway or on a bus just staring off into space, someone is going to rob you. It's going to happen, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Your guard is down.
Yeah.
People take advantage of that.
Yeah, exactly. And the magical sword you're holding in the virtual reality thing is not going to stop the attacker, for sure.
No, definitely not.
So, crack one of these open.
Okay.
Cheers, guys.
Need Coors to sponsor this podcast.
It's coming. I'll shame them into it on social media.
Cheers, gentlemen.
All right. So, like I said, I didn't have a piece picked out specifically for this one, but I actually found one that was pretty good. That actually might not be horribly, horribly depressing.
Yeah, some of these are real bangers.
Yeah. How did I survive to 44 years old? This is what's going through my head on any given day.
I ask myself that a lot.
Yeah.
It's always a bit of a miracle, I think, for most of us.
Yeah.
We didn't grow up on the couch.
No, that's right.
This one's called A Smile on a Good Day. We never really go full circle. We never really come around. The past is what it was, and we can't be what we were. All it ever does is make us hurt. You said you saw me on the street. It had been a long time since you'd said my name. It must have been on one of my clear-skinned days, if I was smiling and acting unafraid. Not every day for me turns out that way, and I'm glad that's how you'll remember me. With the sun shining, eyes alive, and I guess I've missed the way you always looked at me. Hung around a while and hoped for change. Got it wrong, but I tried anyway. You know they only make it easier to stay, but it caught up with me after a 6-week stay. On a sunny summer day, I hear a whisper and let it slip my veins. I cried my eyes out on the floor. I didn't want it anymore, but there were no more words to say. So if you saw me on the street in full sunshine with a smile on my face, it must have been one of my clear-skinned days. There weren't too many when I was in that phase. They grew fewer as the band did play songs for every time my body failed me until I was wasting away, convalescing until the 5th of May. Springtime always brought the best of me. Not sure if I survived, not sure what's left of me. But they say every day is a gift, you see. The present and the future seem like dreams I've lived vicariously through a child's eyes again. From here on out, it's all going to be clear-skinned days. I've washed the blood off of my hands, made a promise that when you see me again, you won't recognize my face. I'm coming around, but not to where I began, just far enough to find my own way. I'm coming around, but not full circle again, just far enough to find myself a place.
Nice.
Kind of about the past and the future and how we get through stuff.
Yeah.
It actually kind of makes sense considering we've known each other a long damn time.
A long time. I was thinking about it yesterday. Like, we're going on 30 years just about, you know.
Yeah, for sure. You were one of the first people I met in high school when I moved here from Jasper.
Oh shit! Okay, that was gonna be a question. Like, how long have you two known each other?
Yeah. I mean, we were very close in the high school days, and as Dave mentioned earlier, you know, guys just drift apart, and and they go their own ways. They, you know, you start families, you follow, you chase work. You know.
Oh yeah. Well, all the ups and downs, right?
Yeah. So
I guess like the way we kind of do this is we kind of start with some background. So like, where were you born? Where'd you grow up? Aside from like how I knew you from Grand Prairie.
Well, you know, when I was born in Cold Lake.
Okay.
And I still got a lot of family there, but my dad chased the service rigs growing up, and that took us all over basically Northern Alberta.
Yeah,
sure.
So born in Cold Lake, as an infant, we moved to Hythe. We moved to Beaver Lodge. We lived in Wembley. We moved to Whitelaw, back to Cold Lake.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then
all the sunny destinations.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
Wow.
So, we've lived all over Northern Alberta, and that's, you know, I did a stint in Rainbow Lake, lived up there for a couple of years.
Nice.
You know, it's not the asshole of the world, but you can see it from there. Yeah. And then, you know, we moved back to Grand Prairie Grand Prairie. I bought my first house in Wembley.
Oh yeah.
And then, I chased a job to Dawson Creek. That's the only way I could advance, was to move to Dawson. And so we moved to Dawson, and then found the acreage in Gordondale that we're at now. And that's where I plan on dying. So I don't really want to move anywhere else.
Yeah, it's nice up there, man.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. Yeah,
nice
you've been out there once.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's my little piece of paradise, and it's perfect. I'm far enough away from people that, you know, I'm left alone. I don't hear my neighbors.
Oh, yeah.
There's no sirens. There's no highway traffic. You don't hear any of that.
No, that's backwoods up there.
You hear birds chirping and elk bugling in the fall, and that's...
Yeah, I remember when we were out there, and man, I hadn't heard elk bugling that close since I grew up in Jasper.
Yeah.
It'd be like they'd be right outside your front door,
absolutely
bugling, right? But,
you know what we're doing this fall?
Yeah, you're coming up elk hunting, right?
Absolutely, man.
The invite is open, guys. It's sweet. I live in a pretty prime spot for hunting.
Yeah,
so.
I bet.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So how'd you guys fare with the fires last year up there?
You know, I've got some pretty amazing pictures on my phone. The fires didn't get too close to us.
Okay.
Our fire department, I'm on a volunteer fire department. We were doing mutual calls up in Savannah. There was a pretty big fire in South Cecil that had jumped the river, and that was a monster. And there's still hot spots. You still see the odd puff of smoke come up over the hill. It's still going, and it's probably going to take years if it ever goes out.
Yeah, until it runs out of fuel.
Yeah, and now we're worried and thinking about the summer already of the lack of snow and lack of moisture. We could be in trouble again this year.
Yeah, we need some
it's
rain.
not looking good. I was out in the country this morning, and you know, out in the trees, there's nothing. It's like, you know, an inch of snow.
A skiff, it's definitely not enough.
Yeah, they seem to get a bunch in southern Alberta, but we got nothing up here, man. It's going to be another dry year unless we get a bunch of rain.
We still could get a pile in the spring. So
when it's supposed to rain, that would be nice.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a lot of people preparing for that.
For sure.
A big issue last year.
Yep. All of our American viewers are like, those fucking Canadians, every podcast, they got to talk about the weather.
It's because I'm avoiding politics.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly, man. Exactly. Cool. So when did you guys move up there?
To Gordondale?
Yeah.
This August will be 10 years there. So
wow, that long already?
Yeah. It's time is flying. I mean, as I get older, man, the time just goes way faster, and it's
exactly.
It's kind of scary.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you.
Yeah, like I mentioned to you earlier, like my youngest daughter is graduating and moving away this year. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, I never thought you'd be empty nesters.
Man, 25 years ago, I never thought I was having kids. So
yeah, exactly. When did you meet your wife?
I met my wife probably in about 1995. She was she was best friends with my sister.
Oh, I see.
And my sister Carlene and
I
would, Carlene, hey, your friends are, she's pretty cute, hey, why don't you introduce me? And she says, no, if it doesn't work out with you guys, then it might hurt our friendship, right?
Right.
So I got her alone one night at Snappers of all places.
Oh shit!
Ooh, yes, yes.
Yeah. So I bought her a drink and I had a dance with her, and the rest is history, man. Like,
wow.
Yeah, we haven't left each other since that night. So,
wow.
Yeah,
that's incredible,
awesome.
man.
Yeah. It's been good.
That's fantastic. So how many years is that now?
This year will be 24 years married. 19 years married, 24 years together. I think we've been just about.
So just about pushing 20 years, eh?
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers.
That's
man.
impressive.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's where the gray hairs come from.
Yep. My good friend here just celebrated 20 years?
Yeah, I just rolled up 20.
Nice.
20 married.
Nice. That's a good milestone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be 15 this year.
That's impressive, man.
Yes.
So three dudes married this long. I think we're beating a lot of statistics.
Yeah,
oh,
for sure.
Man. Oh man, it's crazy. Some of the people get married and they're divorced within the year. It's insane.
Yeah.
And it takes,
absolutely.
But you have to understand your partner, right? I mean,
Yep.
you take the good with the bad, and you can't blame each other for things. You work with it. You work with each other. That's how you make a successful relationship, and I love it. I mean,
it's work. It's always work, but the work's always worth it, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's the only way to get somewhere is to put in that work, and people are just like, they think they can trade up, and that works like with jobs and cars. It doesn't work as well with people.
Definitely
man.
not. No.
Yeah,
no.
It doesn't work as well with relationships.
No, and that's a lot of time and investment. Commitment there. It's a beautiful thing, honestly. I mean, I love it.
For sure. For sure. I mean, but nobody should be sticking around in something that's, that's toxic or abusive or anything like that. Like, there's lost time. You get that lost time fallacy.
Oh, for sure.
Sunken time fallacy where you think like, well, I've got so much time into this thing. I got to keep going. And it's like, no. What you're doing is no good. You got to back out and figure out something else. Do something good for you, right?
Yep. Yeah.
But hopefully people figure that out sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's great. It's, the tough part for us is going to be when the last one moves out. It's I don't know what we're going to do. I mean, it's
you can travel, you can
well, and we did last year. We took our first vacation together anywhere, really. I mean, as when our two oldest were just little. I mean, I don't think we bought plane tickets for them. I think they got to sit on our lap then. Right. We went to Toronto, and that's the only trip we've ever really taken anywhere, and it was just to go a family reunion for Trisha's side of the family. And so in December we bit the bullet and went for 7 days to the Dominican, and it was fantastic.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Of the world.
Yeah.
So when so your dad moved around a bunch when you guys were kids, and then so you met Dave in Grand Prairie.
Yes.
So were you guys living in Grand Prairie and you were going to school here, or how did that?
Yeah, I was going to high school. Dave and I went to the same high school.
Okay.
And had a bunch of mutual friends, and it just worked, just clicked.
Mutual interests.
Yeah.
So
were
you into a little bit like the music scene, like Dave was, or was it more of the party scene? Or
I'm not musical at all.
Okay.
However, a lot of my friends are musical, and I love listening to music, and that's.
Yeah. Dustin was always the biggest fan, man. He was always very supportive of anybody's creative outlets,
for sure,
which is always really cool.
The number one roadie.
Yeah, it's always really cool to have somebody who's got your back on those kind of things, man.
Very cool.
When you're kind of starting out.
Yeah, and I was actually flipping through the old Facebook there the other day, and I saw a picture, and it was on top. I want to say it was on top of the pepper pot.
Oh, the old C-spot pictures.
Yeah, there we go. It was up on the roof, and everybody's up there jamming. Eh?
Yeah.
Me and Scully were sitting in the back side of the picture. You remember Scully? Eh?
Scully from Tattoo, and
yeah. That's a lot of good times back then, man. I miss them, and it's like we were talking earlier. It's just people move on, and you think back on those, and you really miss it.
Yeah,
I do anyway.
Yeah, for sure. It's nice to be able to look back and see you got some pillar moments where you can look back and see like these people were in my life and they changed for, you know, maybe the good, maybe the bad, but since you're still here, you obviously learned a lesson from it.
For sure.
And then you come up the other side of that and you're like, you can still value the relationships that you had, but you're not really hung up on, like for me, I'm not so much hung up on looking back. I don't ever want to think my best days are behind me.
Oh,
right. Like I want to always be able to look forward and think like, you know, there's really good times ahead. There's great times behind.
Definitely.
But there's great times ahead as well. There's a lot of stuff we haven't seen.
For sure. But I think it's important to have that self-reflection where you look back on your past and you can be proud of it and enjoy those moments, right? Like that's part of life, is to be able to look back and cherish those moments, or else why I've lived them in the first place. Yeah, absolutely. So.
And I think the older you get, it's less about moments and experiences, more about people.
For sure.
Yeah.
Right. It's about relationships you built or things you maintained or things that you looked at and you're like, okay, well, you know, this person's in my life and they've changed my life for the better. You know, you can make all the money in the world and have all the cool shit you ever wanted. But it's, you know, what do they say? A person's true wealth is in their friends.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you don't have a good group of friends around you, you're not a whole bunch, really.
No, absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, you know, back in the day, you and I, you got my first job like moving furniture back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And then you kind of went off and did, were you directly into sales? Cause you were with like C.E. Franklin previous.
Yeah, I went there at, I don't think I was quite 18 and I started there.
Okay.
And then I stayed there for 22 years.
Oh shit.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was rather unfortunate. You know, I thought we were doing a good thing. And, one day I got a phone call and they said, "Are you in the office?" I said, "Yep." They showed up at my office and they said, "Give me your keys and your cell phone. We're closing doors."
Wow.
No reason. It was rather shock. I mean, I've been doing this for 22 years. What the hell am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And that was my first thought. Like, I'm not very hung up on my cell phone, but when they took that cell phone away, that's my contacts for everybody. What do I do? Where am I going from here?
Yeah.
And so it was, I just took some time for myself. You know, I went fishing.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know, I need some
move.
time to reflect. I'm not sure where I'm going. This is what I know. This is what I've done for 22 years.
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And so I just, you know.
And C.E. Franklin, that was all like pipes and valves and
oil field supply.
Oil field supply.
Yeah, you betcha. And C.E. Franklin was bought out by National Oil Well, so they called the company NOV Wilson.
Yep.
Then there was another buyout. They wanted to be their own standalone supply company. So Distribution Now is what they ended up being.
Yeah.
When I was done with them. So
okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and now I work in a completely different environment, and I love it.
What do you do now?
I am a lead operator for Secure Energy.
Okay.
I started running heavy equipment, and they saw my management experience from my past job, and asked me to step into the lead operator role. So that's what I do now, and I love it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I know lots of people that have worked or do work for Secure. They seem to enjoy what they do.
Yep, it's a good company. They take care of their people.
So are you working at like that Gordondale facility?
It's a landfill. It's an industrial landfill.
Right.
So it's we take drilling waste basically.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I had an operator that worked for me for quite a few years before he moved on, and yeah, that's what he did.
Yeah,
he did a couple of those landfills. So.
Yeah, it's your toys get bigger as you get older. I mean, there's nothing like running around in a 65,000 pound piece of equipment.
Absolutely, man. So, when did you get into raising cattle?
So, when Trish and I got married, I had invited some of my cousins, and my cousin had a ranch in Gordondale. He had just recently acquired the ranch.
Oh, okay. Is it like a family ranch?
Yeah.
Or was
it... he had bought it off an old couple who were ready to retire.
Oh, I see.
And so he got a smoking deal on a full section.
So is it like a working cow-calf operation that he picked up?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. And so he got into that. And I'd kind of always been around cows growing up. My grandpa had them when I was a kid, and you know, I kind of messed around there. And when my dad wasn't working the rigs, we had actually moved to Whitelaw for a year, and my dad worked on a dairy farm. My dad milked the cows. My mom worked the milk house. And and it sounds kind of corny, but cows are my favorite animal. Always have been.
Nothing wrong with that, man. They're delicious.
Right on.
They taste
delicious,
great, right?
man.
Yeah, they taste great. So
I like pigs. I mean,
exactly.
That's my favorite creature to eat. I'm just Googling. I'm just refreshing on exactly where Gordondale is. It's been a minute since I've been out that way.
It is halfway between Dawson Creek and Spirit River.
Yeah.
Exactly halfway.
I remember a buddy of mine had, I think his dad was from up by like Cherry Point, something like that. 6-toe country, he called it.
Alabama for Canadians.
Yeah, it's up there, man. It's up there. It's some backwoods stuff, but it's nice, man. Great people, beautiful country.
That's the one thing about where I live. The community is, everybody lives a quite a stretch away from each other, but it's a very tight knit community.
Yep.
We just built a new hall out there in Gordondale, and
So it's past Moonshine Lake then.
it is heading west. Yes.
Yeah, like you'd keep heading west.
Yeah,
and then-
absolutely.
Yeah,
We're
okay,
about-
yeah.
I'm about I think I'm 11 miles east of Moonshine, or west of Moonshine Lake.
Okay, yeah. It's been a few years since I've been out in that,
Yeah.
that part of the world, but
So that's if I'm bored, I'll run over to Moonshine and chuck a line in the water.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's not bad fishing in moonshine.
Yeah, it's
Been
not
there
too
a
bad.
handful of times. Yep.
Yeah, they get that blue-green algae.
algae,
but,
yeah.
hey, who doesn't these days?
Yeah.
That's right.
Then they made another little trout pond right by the county office there. So
Oh, right. Yeah,
couple
my
little
sister-in-law
floating
used to
docks.
work there.
yeah. So it's nice.
So, cattle.
Yeah. So
How did we get there?
So so my cousin was at my wedding, and he said maybe you guys should come out to the farm, and have a look around, right? So we went out there, and then we started going out there every weekend, and so when we had made the move to Dawson Creek, it was a lot closer for us than driving from Wembley to Gordondale every weekend. So it was nice. It was a half-hour drive out to the farm, and I was always out there on weekends and feeding cows and helping out where I could.
Yeah.
And my cousin one day, he says he had bought a batch of heifers, and he said, pick one. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, I'm going to give you one. You help out here enough. He says, I'm going to give you one. You can have your own, start your own herd. So I picked one. I picked a black white faced cow, and now I think I have a dozen now. But, but they're all black white faced cows, so that's easy to recognize. They're my cousin's cows are all black or red. So mine have the white face. So
is this something you put some thought into, or
Not-
you just
not
kind
at
of like
all.
it caught you off guard? You're like, that one, I guess.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Okay.
I just liked the way she looked, and so I picked her. And actually, she I think she had 10 calves for me before I ended up selling her. So
Okay.
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Yeah, she was a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been very fortunate that all of my white faced cows have had white faced calves.
Huh.
So that just keeps my
Good genetics, man. That's strong genetics.
Yeah, I guess we have a New Zealand Black Angus is what it is, and it was originated. My cousin had bought an embryo and had it put into one of his purebred cows.
Sure.
And got a really good bull out of that.
Yeah.
And so no relation, so you can breed that bull back to the cow because it's an embryo.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that's basically where that herd took off. And so 2
Okay.
years ago we were up to about 250.
Wow.
And
okay.
then the
It's
cousin that
decent
it's not bad. It's takes a lot of time. I mean, when you have a full-time job, it's another full-time job on the side, especially when winter comes and you've got to feed cows every day.
Yep.
So and then my cousin decided that he didn't want to do it anymore. He was ready to retire, and so he sold half of the herd.
Yep.
And so his brother, obviously my cousin as well, that's where my cows are now. So I'm not as involved in them so much now that they're over at Brian's house. But,
Okay.
like Kim lived next door to me. That's why I bought the acreage where I bought the acreage, because it's literally
Was really
three-quarters of
right
a
on the
mile.
fence line. Yeah.
Yeah, 3/4 of a mile from the cows, right?
Yep.
So and Brian's a little bit further away. He's probably 10 miles away. So
Oh, okay.
and he's got a stepson that lives there, and so he feeds all the cows. And
Gotcha.
if they're going to run them through and do vaccinations or tag or castrate, then they phone me up and hey, we're doing cows this weekend. So
Okay.
and I look
Yeah.
forward to it, man. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, that's awesome, man. I don't know at what point I became like incredibly infatuated with like cattle and farm life, but like I eat a lot of steak.
Oh yeah.
I eat a lot of steak.
Yeah.
And I started looking into like, okay, well, where does my steak come from? Right? Like started looking into that, and then started watching like these YouTube videos. So there's like some pretty big there's one called Our Wyoming Life,
Oh yeah.
where that's what he does is he's got a cow calf operation.
For sure.
I must have watched that for like 8 months. Like he like makes a video every day of basically like life on the farm.
Yep.
I must have watched that every day for like 8 months. man.
I watch him. He's one of the subscriptions I have on YouTube.
Yeah, like it's fantastic, man. I just became like infatuated with where the food comes from, because given the way things have gone in the last call it 6 years or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, this seems important. Like this seems like something I should be paying attention to, and more people should find important.
Absolutely. The funny thing is I raise these cows, but I don't eat my own cows. I never have. My cousin has butchered the odd steer, and I've had a steak or two out of it, but
Yeah.
my family eats primarily elk. Like we
Okay.
my wife hunts, my son hunts, and so my wife gets a cow tag every year.
Yeah.
So she has a cow elk. I shoot a bull every year, and I've been fortunate in the last dozen years. There's 1 year that I haven't shot a bull elk. So I've been pretty fortunate, and that's what we eat wild game 100%. I mean, obviously we throw in the odd chicken there or or some pig once in a while, but we're primarily wild game, and I've never eaten one of my cows.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I remember you saying that.
It's almost shocking.
Yeah, I don't know.
But for me, it's more. I make more money selling a cow than I do butchering it for my own consumption.
Oh, 100%, especially now.
Yeah,
like the price is
ridiculous right now, and it's great. So I'm going to sell off probably half of my cows this spring.
Unless you sold last year,
still so high.
Yeah, if you sold last year, you're probably kicking yourself because it cost you twice as much to get back in this year.
Yeah, well, one of our neighbors sold some 500 weight heifers here not long ago at the auction, and they went for $5 a pound.
Oh my goodness,
that's insane.
That is insane.
You know, I remember 8 years ago, if you were getting $2 a pound, you were laughing. I mean, yes, clicking your heels on the way to the bank to cash that check.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's not coming down anytime soon. By the looks of things.
It's not looking like it, but with this, unfortunately, with the weather and the lack of snow, guys are having a hard time getting hay for their cows. Yeah,
I've heard.
So the market's pretty much. It's surprising that the market is flooded. When you go to an auction on a Tuesday in Dawson Creek, there's they're running 1,250-1,300 head through. Every Tuesday. So to have the price like that, it's insane.
That's where you guys sell your beef.
That's our closest auction is Dawson.
Okay. So because Grand Prairie used to have one.
They used to.
Yeah, my sister used to work there.
Over by H&M, which is also no longer there. Yeah.
She used to sort cattle at that one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I did that actually for a while. I did some nights there in high school, or I guess when I quit high school for a little while. So I went and moved some cattle around there.
I used to work right by there, and it was like my sister and her friend, these two girls in there closing gates, slamming gates, sorting cattle, and I'm like, man, that's rough work. I watched them do it there for a couple of times. I'm like that is some ballsy work for a couple of 18-year-old girls to be doing that.
It is. And I mean, you can't trust them. They can be vicious animals. I've got some pretty good scars on my body, and I've had some pretty good wounds from cattle over the years. I got stepped on once and ripped my stomach open.
Dang, bro.
That was pretty good. And we were actually
how'd that happen?
So that was my own doing. We were we were up in Savannah at the fall fair, and we were chute-dogging.
Okay.
So that's essentially steer wrestling.
Describe chute-dogging.
So it's steer wrestling, but you don't fall off a horse. You stand beside the chute, and they open it, and you grab that steer, and then you wrestle that steer.
Right.
Is that a beer league sport?
It could be.
Okay.
I'm going to guess that's like a moonshine league sport.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem like
well, you usually have a few in you before you do that to get up the courage to be able to do it. Yeah. I mean,
what's a big steer weigh?
Oh, when you're doing it there, you probably don't want them any more than about 400 pounds. But I mean, still 400 pounds. That's an animal, and they've got way more strength in them than I do.
Yep.
So so the thing rolled over top of me and got up and stepped on me when I got up and split my stomach open. Ooh. And it was a little bit sore. I didn't realize at the time because the adrenaline was going from just rolling in the dirt with a 400-pound steer. Yeah. And I was walking back over to my wife. I jumped the fence and I went, oh, look, my stomach hurts a little bit, right? And I lifted up my shirt, and the yellow fat
was a tear.
There was a triangle torn out, sticking out of my stomach.
Oh, geez.
And so my wife just pushed it back in and put a butterfly stitch on it, and we carried on the rest of the weekend.
You didn't have to see the vet or nothing.
No.
Wow, that's wild, man.
Yeah.
That's wild. I love it.
That's a little crazy, but it's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's a different lifestyle when you get into that, the whole cattle thing. I mean, I've got a few really good friends that live up north of us who one guy's probably got about 500 head. The other guy's probably got about 750. And then at one point in the summer, there's a text that goes out to the branding crew. Yep. And so everybody shows up, and we got guys on horses who wrangle them up and rope them and drag them out. And then we have flat assers that we call them. You sit down, you hold a leg. One guy holds the body while we brand them, castrate them, and
away you go.
It's quite the operation. You can run 700 cows through or 700 calves through in about 7 or 8 hours.
Make a day of it. Family comes out, big cookout.
Exactly, big cookout. 10 or 12 coolers full of beer. And
there you go.
Yeah, it's a good time.
There you go. That's that's the part of life that a lot of people don't see. Like when you go to the grocery store and you've got that meat aisle. Yeah. And you've got your vegetable aisle. If you're like me and you don't go down the middle too much, I don't really shop in the middle of the grocery store. But like all that food that's there comes from work that people put in.
Hard work.
And it's not just the work, it's the life and the community.
Oh, for sure.
Because putting food in people's mouths or on people's plates hasn't changed a whole lot in 100 or 200 years since we've been doing it. Yeah. Because someone's still got to put a seed in the ground, or someone's still got to pull a calf, or someone's still got to do all those things that haven't changed in forever.
Yep.
To get that food to the table. And we're so disconnected from food now. I mean, if we're looking at one of the things that, I don't know what it is. It's like when you're getting old, when like things that be on television just make you angry for no reason. And one of those ones is like those like subscription food services.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like, oh, I called whatever company and they delivered, my
Jenny
week's.
Craig, 1-800-JENNY-20, and now I got 20 meals coming for $1 each.
But now they make it seem like that, like it's the thing to do. Like it's like, oh, like I was subscribed to this and I get my food delivered and all I do is cook it. And I'm like, well, that's like one step away from your social credit stuff, man. Because like if you're there and all of a sudden you've maxed out your carbon for the month, citizen, it's like you can't order beef this month.
Oh, for sure.
Like you get rat meat or whatever they got, right? Like
bugs, crickets.
But people are like, oh, it's so convenient. But I'm like, don't you realize that if convenience comes into it, then someone has that control over you.
There's a lot of disconnect where people don't realize what goes into. You can just go to the grocery store and pick it up. A lot of people don't even think of what went into bringing that to that grocery store.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your fresh produce. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's a fast. I mean, it's not fast to grow it. It takes time, but from the time it's harvested till the time it spoils, sitting on a grocery store shelf, and a lot of people 100%. Don't think about that, right?
Yeah, and anybody who's tried to grow anything, like I dabble in some gardening a little bit myself, and it's like, well, I can grow all this stuff. Great. Now what?
Yeah.
It's like, how am I gonna keep it? How am I can't eat it all?
Right, and it quickly leads to, there's a bit of a rabbit hole once you start growing your own things. You're like, well, what am I going to do with all this food? Because it's not going to the grocery store for somebody to eat fresh within the next week or 2 weeks. You're like, okay, now you're into canning, you're into preserving of some sort. Yep. You're into giving it away. It's a community thing. You're like, well, what am I going to do with 7,000 potatoes?
Exactly.
Right? Or whatever it is. But.
Well, and potatoes generally, like, they keep okay.
They do.
Yeah. A cold, dark space. And I mean, your basement bedroom is just great. Cover them with newspaper. And they'll last forever. We still have potatoes at home from our last.
Generally, because we don't eat a lot of carbs. Like, we don't eat a lot of potatoes. But if I grow, I don't know how many pounds we'll pull out of the gardens. But we'll generally eat those through the winter. Yeah. And usually by this time of the year, I didn't have a garden last year because we moved. But usually by this time of year, I'm eating like the last of my potatoes.
Exactly. By spring, you're starting to run out of everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. We just did, I think we used some of our last carrots. Yeah. Like my wife will chop them up and vacuum seal them and then chuck them in the freezer. And it's so convenient. I mean, it's.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. She spends all the time in the garden. I have to give her all the credit for that. Yep. I do very little in the garden. I might till it once in a while for her, but she spends a lot of time in that garden and her greenhouse for that matter.
Yep. Oh, okay. So you guys got a greenhouse out there too?
We've got a little greenhouse. She grows her peppers and such in there. And
this guy's got a greenhouse, man. He grows nothing but peppers.
Oh, really? Have you done cucamelons?
No.
They're amazing.
All right. I'll try.
Have you heard of them?
It sounds like a cucumber watermelon hybrid.
So it looks like a watermelon. Okay. It's the size of a grape and tastes like a honeydew.
What?
They're delicious.
Right. Oh, wow.
They're absolutely delicious. If you can get a handful of those and throw them in a salad, man, that makes a salad.
Is that like a seed you buy at PV Mart? Or
I don't think I've ever seen them there. My wife gets them from, I want to say it's like a Vesey's Seeds or VC Seeds, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then we have a neighbor lady who my wife helps out. Occasionally, she's got a very large greenhouse. Okay. And so she'll start peppers and all that kind of stuff early on in the year. And then for the help my wife does, she gives her, pots of peppers that she'll take home and put in the garden and grow for the rest of the year.
Yeah, awesome.
Nice. It's pretty neat. Yeah,
for sure.
So I just got a quick follow-up question. Was that the last steer you wrestled ever? Or did you do
it
again?
I mean, intentionally, yes.
Okay.
But as you're working, you're working cows, I mean, there are times you have to get a little.
Yeah, that was my question. Was that the last intentional? Okay.
That was the last intentional.
Okay.
Yes. The opportunity was there last year to do it too, but I gracefully bowed out there.
I get it, man.
That seems like a young man's game.
As I get older, I don't heal as well.
Yeah.
Or a very drunken older man's game.
Yes. I mean, you put enough beers in me, I'd definitely do it again, I'm sure. But
yeah, I'm a big fan of watching rodeo, bull ride, and all that stuff. And And yeah, when I watch the steer wrestling, it's one of those things that you're like, I could do that. And you're like, you would die. Yes, I would. Yes, I would.
A guy I played beer league hockey with, and he's actually a professional steer wrestler.
Yeah.
And so he's doing really well right now in Southern Alberta.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. He moved down there actually to pursue his steer wrestling career, and he's doing really well at it.
Oh, that's awesome, man. What's his name?
His name is Colton, and he's got a lot of sponsors now, which is good. I mean, it costs a lot of money to get around there and
of course.
Get horses back and forth. I mean, anything you do in rodeo is not cheap.
No.
I mean, it's monetarily and on your body.
Yeah.
It takes a toll on your body as well, right? I mean,
I was going through like the Netflix thing where you like sit in front of Netflix and scroll through things that you're never going to watch like for an hour. You're like, I want to watch something. And you're just watching the shows go by for like an hour. And I stumbled on a biography of some sort of J.B. Mooney.
Oh yeah.
And he's like this legendary bull rider. And I remember watching that, and then I was hooked after watching that. I was just like, anytime they're in town, we'll go out and see the PBR anytime they're in town here.
Yeah, they come to Dawson quite often too. I like try and get out to that as often as I can. I love watching that.
It's a good time, man.
Yeah, and a lot of people say they just go to watch it, but I'm sure everybody's there to watch the guys get thrown off the bulls or get knocked over, stepped on. I mean,
you like to see a good wreck. I like to see him win.
It's good old fashioned Roman entertainment, right? Like you go, it's like a gladiator.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
Going to see, like,
man versus beast.
Yeah, what's up? Let's see it.
100%, man.
So I got a question about so you got into cattle. Does that tend to spiral out of control for most farmers and ranchers? Is it like you get into other, like, did you end up with chickens and horses and all the other sheep and all that other stuff? Like, have you tried other things? Do you have other things?
Well, when we bought the acreage, we got a couple of miniature horses.
Okay.
We've had a couple of pot-bellied pigs. We had goats, and goats are assholes. Yeah. So, I mean, you'd be sitting at the kitchen table having dinner, and there'd be a goat on the deck. Mm-hmm. How did you get out? They're almost impossible to keep in pens, and so we sold the goats. We got rid of the miniature horses, and it's you think you like it until you try it, and those specifically are not for me.
Okay.
We do still have one horse at the acreage, and he's actually going to go to a therapy.
An equine therapy thing?
Yeah. Well, there's a lady that teaches kids about horses in the community, and so horses cost you more money, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
Than they're worth. I mean, you're putting, with the price of hay. I mean, it's ridiculous. You're paying minimum $100 a bale right now. So we're getting rid of the horse, but I think I'm going to get some miniature cattle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My sister was she's like, she's got a little chicken ranch right now. She's got like exotic chickens and ducks and all this stuff. And she's looking at miniature Highland steers.
Yes.
And she's like, they're so cute. I'm like, you don't raise steak on cute. Like I don't think that's how ranching works, lady. Like,
well, and a miniature cow still has all the same parts as a full size cow. You just get smaller steaks, right?
And is that something people raise to eat? Or is it more of a?
I think there's a little bit of both. A lot of people have them just as pets, but in my opinion, they're not pets. It's food. It's food, right? But there's a market for small steaks. It's
sure
they taste exactly the same. I think. I would think.
Yeah, you're feeding them the same stuff. Why do they taste any different?
They eat the same things. They do all the same things, just on a smaller scale. So
yeah, miniature farming, man.
Yeah,
that sounds hilarious.
Yeah, so yeah. I think if I were to do it, they would kind of be pets, but it would still be along the same lines. I'm still raising them to get a calf out of them, to sell the calf, to make a little bit of money. To fund keeping them.
Yeah, I was just curious if it's like from a market perspective, you got this. How many of these little fuckers do you need to make one big one? As far as you're to load it on a truck and haul it to the.
Well, and a miniature cow is not actually a miniature cow, so to speak. I mean, you can get micro cattle.
Well, how big is it? How many?
So 40 inches at the back is considered probably a miniature cow.
So it's like a little white-tailed deer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're probably not going to get them any more than about 400 pounds as a top weight, I would think. Yep. But I just think it's kind of cool.
400 pounds. And two Ramsey, but I can take that thing.
And I have 15 acres, and I mean it's if I wanted to keep a few cows in my place, it would only be a few, whereas I could keep 10 miniature cows on the same amount of land, right? So
yeah,
very cool.
That's interesting, man.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah,
I remember we were visiting a couple of years ago, and you were telling me that your kids had almost never eaten meat out of the grocery store.
Just about. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so from the time that they were born, they were eating.
As long as I've hunted.
Was it all game?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We had a neighbor a couple of years ago. I did some field work for him, and he had phoned me up and he says, "Do you have room in your freezer?" And I said, "Yeah. Why? What's going on?" He says, "Well, I'm giving you half a beef for the work you did for me last fall."
Okay.
And I didn't actually get to complete that work. I fell down the stairs and broke a few ribs.
Oh, jeez.
and you can't bounce around in a tractor with broken ribs. It just doesn't work. And excuse me. So he had brought over this half a beef, and we threw it in the freezer. And we took out some steaks. I took out some T-bone steaks and I cooked them up, and they were delicious. And then I cooked up some other, I can't remember what the next kind of steaks we cooked up, but it was like, I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
Like, this is not the elk meat that I typically eat.
Right.
And to me, cattle taste wild. To anybody else who eats wild game, it's like, I can tell that's wild game. To me, that's normal. And a cow is wild to me.
Yeah.
It's kind of different, which is weird, being a guy that raises cattle and not eating them. I just find it's you probably think it's weird. I think it's weird.
No, I think you're a freak. No, no, that's cool. That's interesting.
Well,
It makes sense though to me that with all the hunting that you do, and my favorite big game creature to eat is elk.
Yeah.
So, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's you know what? And a couple years back, I finally got my moose draw. Like, it takes 8 years or 7 years to get a moose draw up in that zone.
Okay.
And so I finally got a moose draw, and I was holding out. I was going to shoot a nice moose bull or a bull, and I give a couple of calls. My wife and I were sitting out in the bush. I give a couple of calls, and immediately a bull started grunting. It stepped out, and he had horns like this. And I dropped him.
Yeah.
And he's gonna taste good, I thought, and we ate that moose, and I ended up giving a whole bunch to my sister because that didn't sit well with me either. It's just, everybody loves you hear people talk about moose is such a great meat, and yes, to a lot of people it is, but to me it's not. I'm an elk guy 100%.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see that. I mean, I definitely prefer, out of all the ungulates, for sure, elk is my preference as well.
It's delicious, man. They eat farmers' crops all year.
They do, man.
Yeah, up here they're grain fed. Yeah, it's a little bit
They are
different.
grain fed in the right places.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know if maybe it was like a Rogan thing or something like that. But I was listening to somebody describe recently about how when people think about that game flavor from meat, there's actually just the taste of meat.
Yeah.
So we get so used to eating out of the grocery store where everything is loaded up on hormones, antibiotics. The meat is processed. It's not as, not as God intended, but it's not the same thing. Like if you get even getting steak, so you're buying your beef direct from the producer, it's going to have a little bit of flavor because it's not necessarily getting handled the same way.
They'll legit tell you it's grass finished or corn finished or whatever, and that'll sweeten it, right?
Yeah.
like, that'll change the flavor of it.
Yeah, for
They
sure.
do that specifically because it's going to the market.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're buying direct from the producer, I find, some supermarkets you don't know what grade you're getting. You don't really know how good the meat is. But that description of like when people are like, oh, it got that gamey flavor. I get it with moose, like because they're eating like water plants and stuff like that,
Yeah,
right? Like
branches.
Exactly.
That's how they get through the winter.
Yeah.
Right? Barks and twigs and
Yeah,
shrubs.
it's gonna be funky, right? That's just the way that is. Like eating the way that they eat off the bottom of the pond, all that stuff. Like that's just the way it is.
Or grouse. A ruffed grouse taste. I mean, there's a little bit of gamey taste in a ruffed grouse. Yeah. You eat a spruce grouse, it tastes like you're eating a pine tree.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or a spruce tree.
It's not that good.
No, it's not good at all. And it's a dark meat as opposed to the white meat with the rough grouse.
Yeah. I never that's just the taste of meat.
Yeah.
Whereas our palate is all messed up because we're eating all this processed food all the time, right? So one thing I never got my head around was Canada goose. I never got into eating goose, man.
I've never got into eating it either, except for in jerky. I've got a buddy who's a very avid goose hunter, and he makes pounds upon pounds of goose jerky,
duck jerky,
and it's delicious and it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely.
Yeah, and I've never waterfowl hunted. I would love to. I've never done it.
Geese are fun. Where the fun in hunting waterfowl is, you got a bag limit. Like let's say Canada's, I think it's 15 or it's 10 or 15 birds per dude. So if you got 3 guys out there, I mean, you could shoot 30 or 45 birds. Like, it's a good time. Whereas, if you're hunting elk, boom, and the work starts. You shot one creature, now you're going to work all goddamn day, and part it tomorrow or whatever.
Oh, for sure.
And it is what it is. But yeah, birds, you get to keep on shooting. So it's fun, right? It's a good time.
I could see that. And now with the snow goose, there's no limit, right? And I think I want to say you can do 50 a day, but there's no possession limit. So you could
if you want to fill
continually
the car
blast.
I
But
don't know what you can do with it all.
I mean,
exactly.
Exactly.
I shoot what I need,
Yeah.
and that's it. I don't really have any desire to go and, shoot 20 geese, because what am I going to do with them? I'm probably not going to eat them. Maybe I could find somebody who wants to eat them, but I'm not going to eat them.
Yeah, I've only ever had Canada goose a handful of times, and it was always kind of weird to me, because I'm like, why is it like roast beef? It's like dry, overcooked roast beef.
Yeah.
And I always just am a firm believer that I just didn't have it prepared properly. There's somebody out there who knows how to cook this, and it's probably really, really good, but
maybe. I don't know who that person is either.
Yeah.
We always just pepperoni them, right? Like we just
sure. I could see
that'd
that.
be good.
Take all the meat, take it in, grind it with pork, and make a batch of pepperoni. And it was always good. It was,
How about horse? Have you tried horse?
only raw.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've had it in Japan. We ate it raw.
Oh, wow.
They serve it with like onion and garlic and maybe a bit of horseradish or wasabi.
Yeah.
But I've never had it cooked.
Yeah, I've had it in a roast.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't even know I was eating horse until the guy told me afterwards.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where we were invited to go and help a guy out on his farm. And this guy he was outside of Rycroft. And at that point, I think he had 1,900 head of cattle or something like that. So
Okay.
we went out to go and give him a hand. And as usually happens, the person who invites you does up a dinner.
Yeah.
And so we had this great big spread. It was delicious. And I went back for a second helping of the meat. And then afterwards, the guy says, "What'd you think of that roast?" I said, "It was absolutely delicious."
Yeah.
He said, "You know what you're eating?" I said, "I'm assuming it was beef."
Yeah.
He says, "No, our family eats a lot of horse." That was horse.
Wow.
I was shocked, but not disappointed.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah,
I've
see
never
anything
run
wrong
into
with
it myself. I
but,
wouldn't say no. I like to think of myself as like a culinary Noah. Just bring me two of every animal,
Yeah.
and I'll try just about anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, like part of me wants to like have some giraffe. Like I think there's a choice cut on the neck somewhere.
Oh,
Sure.
There's got to be.
I would imagine.
So
Yeah.
There's a reason they're all made out of meat, right? Absolutely.
All the lions eat them. So
yeah.
So, do you guys process all your own game?
I do. Yes.
Okay.
I had a meat cooler in my shop for quite a few years, and I still cut and wrap my own stuff.
Okay.
When I had the cooler in my shop, we were probably processing for friends and neighbors probably upwards of 50 animals a year.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it got. I mean, it was nice. Somebody throw you a couple $100 for cutting and wrapping their elk or their deer or whatever, and it was nice. But I mean, after I've already worked for 10 hours, I don't really want to come home and spend the rest of my evenings cutting animals for people.
Yeah,
so I do it for myself or for my son or for my wife, kind of a thing. Or if a buddy needs a hand, I'll give them a hand, right? But for the most part, we do it all ourselves. So.
Yeah, and I was hearing it was just this past season that a lot of the butchers were packed up early, man. Like there was nowhere really to get, or people was getting pretty lean on getting your meat processed.
Yeah,
it was a very successful year for hunters.
Absolutely, absolutely, and everybody fills up really quick. There's a couple of guys around us. There's Hutterites in Wanham. They've got a couple of big coolers, and they do really good on the processing thing. But I mean. If I have the know-how and to do it, I just can't justify spending $400 to give somebody to do it when I can do it myself for next to nothing. Yeah. Right. The tag cost me $45 and
and you're filling your freezer for
that's it. Right.
$45.
I mean, the cost of ammo. I mean, every time I squeeze that trigger, it's $5. But
what are you gonna do? That's okay. That just keeps him working.
Yeah. I know where you can get more.
I saw your nice big billboard coming into Claremont on the way in this morning.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. I think we have one at every direction.
Yeah.
So
it's nice, man. It's good to see
all the corners.
Yeah. Good to see you, man.
Yeah.
So you said with your kids moving out, you don't got any plans?
I don't. I think Trish and I are going to plan on doing a little bit of traveling.
Yeah.
So
anything on the bucket list you'd like to kick off?
The first thing was I wanted to go somewhere tropical. I've always talked about it. So we did that. We went to the Dominican and it was absolutely fantastic. We did a couple of off-resort excursions, which were absolutely beautiful. We went to a beautiful little place. You take a catamaran out in the middle of the ocean. They have a little island with some grass huts there. It's called Paradise Island.
Okay.
And you go there, you go to the hut. They give you a pair of flippers, a life jacket, and a snorkel. And you go out with a guy who's got a bag of food and he brings in all these tropical fish and you just swim around and take pictures of these tropical fish.
Oh, cool.
And they've got these giant jellyfish that don't sting. So you just you can pick up a dinner plate sized jellyfish and play around with it. It's
That's
insane because you
wild.
can see right through it. Like
It's
they're-
like an alien, man.
yeah, totally. But it was super cool, and I want to go to Iceland. That's like a bucket list trip for me, man. I want to go see the hot springs, the volcanoes, all at the same.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that, and I don't think Trish is so on board with the Iceland thing, but I think we'll give and take. I'll go where she wants to go, but she's got to go where I want to go. So
yeah, I've had quite a few friends that have been like to Iceland and Norway and stuff like that, and every single one of them has said that they'd go back.
Oh, for sure. I could
all
see
said
it.
it was an amazing place, tons to see, tons to do.
Yep.
People were awesome. Like,
Another bucket list for me is I want to see the East Coast of Canada. I would love to go see the East Coast of Canada.
Yeah.
And I mean, while it's cool to go and see all these other different places, these tropical destinations and stuff like that, I would like to invest my money and explore my own country. Really before I invest in other countries.
Yeah, I think Canadians, the reason that we don't do it more is because it's very expensive to travel here.
It's absolutely
really
expensive.
It's
oh yeah.
unbelievably cheaper to just fly somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean,
and it's like I think last year I flew out east to Newfoundland. My wife had some family out there. We got some relatives that lived out there, and it was like a couple grand round trip. I probably could have done it cheaper. I kind of left things to kind of last minute, but the flights to and from weren't cheap. But like Canada is very unique, no matter where you go.
Definitely.
I ended up driving up to the Yukon a couple of years ago, and that's a drive I'll definitely do again.
I would love to do that as well.
Like we were a stone's throw from the Alaska border.
Yeah.
And growing up in the mountains, growing up in Jasper, like I have an affinity for the mountains. Like whenever I kind of get in the mountains, I just kind of feel at home. And those mountains out in the Yukon make like the Rockies to the south look like anthills, man.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's so rugged, so wild, it's so unpopulated. Like it reminded me of like what it was in like the 80s. Like being in Jasper in like the 80s, it was so sparsely populated that there was still tourism, but it wasn't like millions and millions and millions of people like it is now.
Yeah, bus loads of people coming through town. Yep.
Up there, it's just kind of there's still that natural awe you get out there because it's just untouched. Right, there's a few mines up there but half the trucks I saw were guys out there sheep hunting.
Oh yeah,
like getting out there, and there's no infrastructure, so people are relying on each other, and you got tight knit communities, but definitely get a head back up there, man.
Oh, for sure, I'd love to. We've talked about just making a 2-day trip or whatever, just even up to the Liard Hot Springs and go to check that out. I hear it's beautiful. I've seen pictures of it, and it looks gorgeous. I'd love to check it out.
Yeah, once you get past Fort Nelson, like the drive to Fort Nelson is pretty boring.
It is.
I've been up there a handful of times, but once you get past Fort Nelson, you kind of get down, you start getting into the Rockies. It just changes.
Yeah. See, I bought a motorcycle a couple of years ago, and I'd love to do a trip like that. A couple of buddies of mine, we were talking about maybe doing a trip, through Jasper, Prince George, and back up this way, just to get my wings, so to speak, on a good road trip on the bike. Yeah. So I just been.
What kind of bike did you get?
I bought it's a Kawasaki Vulcan.
Okay,
a nice little touring bike, right?
Yeah,
it's a start, and that's I've put about 7,000 or 8,000 kilometers on it since I bought it, and so I think I'm ready to graduate up to a bigger bike now.
There you go.
I bought that because it was a good price, and I'd never ridden before, so I wanted to figure it out. Is this something I want to actually invest some money in? It's a lot of fun, man. It's very freeing. And, I mean, there's nothing like having the wind blow in your face.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be dangerous. I mean,
just soak anything.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, you watch everybody else around you. I don't worry about my skills on a bike or how I ride. I worry about what other people don't see or.
100%. Just give everybody as much room as possible. Man.
Yeah. Last year I was ripping just actually by the Moonshine Lake entrance, and a robin flew out and hit me on the inside of the thigh. And it's like somebody threw a pool ball at me. Yeah. Like it's man, doing 110 kilometers an hour and that little bird hits you. Holy smokes, does that hurt?
Yeah. You learn that stuff quick, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had a couple close calls with deer, and that's my biggest fear is laying that thing down on the highway. So
there's quite a few out that neck of the woods, man.
Oh, yeah.
I've had to dodge quite a bit of wildlife driving up that way.
Yeah. It's a very popular area for wildlife. That's for sure. Yeah.
So do you hunt deer at all?
I do.
Yeah,
I do. Now I'm a little bit more pickier on the deer. I'm not. I'll eat them, but same thing. I'll make it into jerky. I don't take steaks or anything like that. You know, I might pull off a loin or a backstrap or something like that and give it a bacon wrap and chuck it on the Traeger and do that. But for the most part, like I don't cut those up into steaks or anything. We'll just do the jerky and sausage with that. But I mean, when I buy a deer tag, I'm looking for a big deer.
Yeah, so, you're hunting lumber.
Yeah.
You're looking for something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's, I mean, it takes same thing. I mentioned that I think it took 7 years to get a moose tag up there, and it's 7 or 8 years to get a mule deer tag up there as well. So
they're thick up there, though.
They are, and I wonder. I mean, I'm not sure why it's on such a strict draw system the way it is right now with the population that's up there. I mean, you can buy a general whitetail tag every year, and you can shoot a doe on that general tag, but it takes you 8 years to get a mule deer, which I find are much more popular up there than the whitetails are.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few up that way.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what are you doing this year? What's the plan?
As far as
for hunting?
Elk tag. That's I've got a friend that lives in Barhead who's got a really good patch of land out there. He's got some big deer out there, and I went there for a few days last year. But I mean, a few days just doesn't get you where you need to be to be in the right spot. And it just turned out like the day after I left, he got camera pictures of that big buck that I was hunting.
Oh wow! Yeah. Are they stand hunting out there?
Yeah, he's got a stand. I'm scared of heights, so I don't get in deer stands. So I'll throw up a ground blind, and I'll sit in a ground blind, and that's about.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fat people don't fall well, and it's so
sure.
So I'd rather just sit closer to the ground.
That just seems like a whole lot less work anyway.
Absolutely,
man.
Yeah. So that's the plan. I'd like to get back there and do a little whitetail hunting over there, and the last I think 3 of the last 5 years I've shot elk within a mile of my house. So.
Yeah, that's all right.
Man. Yeah.
Like
literally
I said,
in the backyard.
We were sitting out there at his place, sitting around the fire, and just hearing him scream from less than a mile away, man.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah,
there's many a nights, you'll pour a whiskey and sit out on the front deck and just listen, and the elk go crazy across the road, and of course nobody's allowed to hunt over there, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So they know that, and they get familiar with that, right? People aren't walking through the bush and scaring them out, so they get their own little haunts that they like to stay in, and that's.
Yeah, if they're not being harassed, that's where they want to be. Man.
Exactly. Yeah.
Any wolves up your way?
Yes. Actually, one of the guys that works for me, him and his dad have an outfitting business, and he's got a picture. I can bring it up my phone and show you guys in a bit, but I think there's 11 wolves in the one picture.
Oh, wow.
And we can bait them out there as well, right?
Yeah. Still a bounty on wolves up there?
I don't think there's a bounty anymore. I think they dropped that probably about 4 years ago, but at one point they would give you $500 if you brought it in, and then they would just take a little punch out of the ear for a DNA kind of a thing, and then you could do whatever you wished for it. And I would love to have a wolf mount. I mean, I got a little wall. When you walk in my front door of my house, I've got the stairs go down the basement, and I've got a big high wall there that I've got the biggest elk I've ever shot, the first elk I've ever shot. I found a juvenile bald eagle in the ditch, driving to Dawson Creek, and so the Fish and Wildlife gave me a permit for that, so I took it to a taxidermist and had that done up. And and then I was fortunate enough to shoot a pretty decent mule deer here a couple of years ago, so that's on the wall there. And so I'd like to add to that for sure.
Put a wolf up
wolf
there.
hide would be nice.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah,
I've been hearing there's a lot more of them around here the last few years.
Yeah, cougars too. There's a lot of.
Oh, really?
We've been
that far north.
Yeah, one of my buddies has got a trap line, and with not intentionally going after cougars, he sets wolf sets, and it was kind of an odd year. He got 77 coyotes, 7 wolves, and 7 cougars that year. So 7 cougars in his wolf snares.
Yeah. Wow.
Which and then
cats, man.
And then more cats on cameras that didn't get in there, and it was the Fish and Wildlife were coming out just about every other week to come and grab a cougar that he had snared. So.
Well, I know a friend of mine. He was trying to remember where his family farm is up north. Thinking around the Wanham area, maybe a little further north than that.
Yep.
But he was telling me that Fish and Wildlife had actually relocated cats from the Banff area.
Oh yeah.
And dumped them up there because he was starting to see all these tracks, and he was like, "That's weird. We didn't have cats out here before. They had lynx and stuff like that." And then he ran into a Fish and Wildlife guy, and he was mentioning it, and he's like, "Yeah, they brought two up here and released him." He's like, "And you didn't tell anybody? People got cattle and kids running around.
Absolutely.
Like you're relocating these large predators up into our neighborhood, and you're not telling anybody."
Yeah, and as of late, in the last few years, we've had a lot of grizzly bears around the house.
I was going to ask you about that because I know I got friends south of town here around Grovedale, and the amount of grizzlies that they're seeing on game cameras, they got one guy's got same thing, like 7 or 8 different big grizzlies on this camera, and you're like, okay, like I thought these things were extinct a few years ago. They're obviously not, but
ever since they ended the grizzly bear hunt in Alberta, that's been a major problem. I think they're going to have to cull some predators eventually. Like
Fish and Wildlife only wants you to know there's only 200 grizzly bears in Alberta, but I mean, there's 200 between here and my house.
Yeah, exactly.
There's at least 200 around Grovedale. South of town.
Absolutely. There's a lot there. Like from my front step across the township road, our neighbors keep cattle there in the summertime, and they have a creep feeder for their calves. Beef their calves up before they sell them in the fall.
Yeah.
And when they pulled all their calves out, a grizzly bear was 100 yards from my front step, going to that creep feeder nightly, and cleaning that thing out. And by the time that I had really gotten my shit together, I went and put a trail camera on that creep feeder, the bear had moved on. But
oh wow,
yeah, I've got some really cool pictures. Like I was saying, we had a meat shop, but we were cutting meat in our shop, and my boy had shot a cow elk, and we'd cut it up and we'd put it in the box of his pickup. It was, it was -12 or something outside, so it would freeze overnight, and we left this stack of bread trays full of wrapped meat in the back of his pickup overnight.
Yeah.
And my neighbor of mine had phoned me. He says, "Hey, there's grizzly bear tracks coming out beside your driveway." And I went, "Oh no." I was at work. I was thinking, oh man, there's
all that meat.
There's 300 pounds of meat in the back of this truck. So I ducked out of work early, and I got there and I followed this grizzly bear's tracks, and he walked down the trail, 25 yards from where that truck was, and then turned and went the opposite direction.
Oh shit.
So the wind was just blowing the right way that day, right? Because
Yeah.
that could have been a disaster. But that same bear, I'm sure it's the same bear. I've got several different pictures of him, and he's a big boar that's probably 700 pounds.
Oh man.
That he just goes back and forth. Like we have every farm has a dead pile.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
When you have livestock, you have dead stock. So you have to have some place to put them. So we have a little grove of trees that we have to throw the dead cows in, and we'll go shoot coyotes off them or whatever, right? Yep. And so that bear had got into that dead pile, and I had literally just put a cow that had gone down on the ice and split its hips. I had to put it down, and I hauled it off there. And that grizzly bear picked that 1,600 pound cow up and moved it 40 yards further into the bush so he could eat it in peace, right? Without
we'll bury him and let him rot a little bit, right? Grizzlies like that rot.
Yeah, it's crazy. Man. So I'd gone out there, and there was a big rock pile from picking rocks in that hayfield up against the trees, and something didn't look right. I was looking around, and it wasn't dawning on me, and then I looked and I went, that rock pile that was 8 feet tall is flat. Like it's flat. It went through there. I don't know, maybe there was rodents in there or something. It was after originally.
Yeah.
But that rock pile, the size of this room, was a foot off the ground.
Wow.
Yeah, he just leveled it.
Wow.
So when I saw that, I went and put a camera up there, and I got pictures of him for four or 5 nights eating on that cow, and holy man, he's just a monster.
Yeah. Wow, man.
Yeah. Literally 1 mile from my back door.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that could become a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And
it would be for any of the producers in that area.
And what do you do if you're out there and say you're walking for sheds and this grizzly bear comes out and comes after you? You can't shoot it. And if you do, you're going to be in shit. Even in self-defense, you're still going to be in shit for shooting this grizzly bear.
Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe
upside down world.
Yeah, maybe you go by the shoot, shovel, and shut up rule in that situation.
Well, and I'm certain there's 100% a certain amount that has to happen.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
where it's like,
yeah, for sure, man. It's like it's your livelihood, right? Yeah. If you're going out there, and I was just talking to a guy here recently, so he was telling me that he had seen grizzly bear on his fence line right next to his cattle, had 2 calves go missing. Tracks one down, follows the tracks, definitely bear tracks, definitely grizzly bear tracks, sees the grizzly bear, gets Fish and Wildlife out there because he's trying to get his predation, paid back, right? Because he got a depredation payment.
Yeah.
And Fish and Wildlife won't sign off on it, telling him like, "Oh, this is not a grizzly." And he's like, "No, I saw it." He's like, "Well, you got game cameras out here? You got pictures of it?" He's like, "No." And he's like, "Well, we're not signing off on it." So, here you got these bears, problem bears in that area. Government's no help, as usual.
Yep.
Right? So what are you going to do? You got to look after your livestock, right? Got to look after your livelihood.
Well, and see, with the population of black bears, you can literally on private land shoot black bears all you want without a tag. Yeah. I mean, just as long as you have permission from the landowner, you can shoot them at will. I mean, it's the same thing with wolves. I mean, you have to shoot them within any big game season. If there's no big game season, you can't shoot a wolf. But as long as you have landowner permission, you can smash it.
Yeah, and it's I know there's exemptions to some of that, like for coyotes. For a landowner, I mean, if you've got cattle in
yes,
there,
you can
might not be in a big game season.
It's private land, right? So you can
private land is the landowner. I'm pretty sure they're can just get it done.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure somebody in the comments will let us know what we're getting wrong here, but that's wild, man. Like
I'll line up a fish and wildlife guy for us to set the record.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. I know that there's been a lot more encounters, like human bear encounters, human cougar encounters, especially getting into the mountains, southern Alberta. I think even down to the States, they're having a lot more issues with people getting out into the world, and then a lot more predators out there. And you're having a lot more encounters with people and predators.
Definitely. And they're going to have to bring back a season for grizzly bears.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a season for cougars, but you can't hunt a cougar without dogs. It's nearly impossible. I mean, if you see a cougar, that cougar has already had eyes on you for how long? I mean,
I know.
They're very elusive.
Yeah.
I think I've only ever seen two in my entire, as much time I spend in the bush in the fall, I think I've seen two.
Yeah, I've seen one in my entire life.
Yeah, I've seen one. I was hiking in Jasper, and it was in the morning, and it was up on a cliff, sunning itself on the cliff, and we were hiking into this lake, and I was the whole fucking time, that whole day, man. I'm just like,
it's just
hair on the back of your neck, man.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck, I know it's out there, man.
Yeah,
it's stalking us right now.
And
it wasn't there on the way back, of course. Like, it's 4 or 5 hours later, right? And where's that fucking cat? Because I know it's there.
Yeah, he watched me, and he's watching me walk out. Like it's on.
Just like in a cartoon where I'm like a chicken, just walking, just walking. Oh man.
Yeah, just bait.
Yeah.
Yeah, and bears don't bother me when I'm in the bush at all. I mean, I've been charged by bears. I've baited black bears. I've had literally pull my side by side up to a bait to add bait to it, and bears are getting in the back of my side by side trying to get the bait before I can even put it in the barrel. And like bears don't bother me. They don't scare me.
Yeah.
But cougars, they're always on my mind when I'm in the bush.
Yeah. Growing up in the mountains, bears are just a natural, part of life. The only time I really got freaked out was we were in BC, because growing up in Jasper, we never camped in the park. We would always go into BC to camp. And there was one lake out there, Lucerne Campground, where all the locals from Jasper go camping just inside the BC border. I think it's technically in Mount Robson. No, it's a provincial park before the Mount Robson National Park. And there's some trails to go hiking around in there. And we would hiking around the lake, and we got really close to the water. It's kind of overgrown with willows. Couldn't really get through. We were kind of climbing over deadfall. Kind of like, okay, this trail doesn't really go anywhere anymore. And we get to this point where we're right on the water, and you can see these huge moose antlers sticking up from like the mud and brush on the side of the lake. And we're like, whoa, cool. Like, we were kids, like, I don't know, like 12, 13. We're like, oh, cool, look at this dead moose. And it's all like half buried in the mud, and we're kind of, poking it and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, it just sort of occurred to me, I'm like, I start looking around at all these huge grizzly tracks, and I'm like, we got to get out of here. Like, right, that hair on the back of your neck moment.
To go,
Like, uh-oh.
You know how angry I get when somebody messes with my steak?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're gonna get out of here right now.
You don't want to get added to that pile, man.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah, we booked her out of there pretty quick.
Oh, yeah.
But then I realized, because it was all deadfall, I'm like, there was no getting out of there fast. Yeah. Like, if a bear comes charging through there, we've been done.
Oh yeah, they cover ground quick, man. I think they can run up to 70 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, and they don't get stopped by trees or nothing. No, man. They go right through that shit.
Yeah. I don't want to be on the other end of that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So when you got into cattle and living in the country, like, was that something that you had done as a kid? Like you said, your grandpa had some cattle?
Yeah, my grandpa had some cattle, and as a early teenager, like, I think I was 12 years old the first time I took a Greyhound bus across Alberta to go spend the summer at my grandpa's place. My grandma and grandpa's place in Cold Lake. And,
okay.
and I did that for a few summers after that. And that's from a young age. My grandpa had cattle. I have pictures of him from, the 60s, and he had Hereford cattle back in the day and built his own wooden corrals with all the spruce that are, or the poplars that are around there. Right. And, yeah, I was fortunate enough to be that young and introduced to it, and it kind of just stuck with me. I mean, even growing up in the city of Grand Prairie, you know, it was always nice to get back to the farm and back out to nature, and it stuck with me, and I've loved to do it all the time. And now that I'm old enough to make my own way and choose my own path.
Yeah.
I wanted that to be a part of how I went forward. So
yeah, was that something you wanted for your kids? Was like once you guys started having kids and stuff like that, you kind of wanted to get out of the city or
exactly
have them raised somewhere that was a little more rural?
I've always wanted to have my own little piece in the country. And like when we moved out there, we didn't get a TV subscription or anything like that. It was, you know, now we're out here. You can find things to do outside. You don't need to be in the house. You don't. My kids never got tablets or things like that to play on. It was, you know, and now that's
you had miniature horses.
Yeah, and asshole goats.
Yeah,
and,
there you go.
Yeah, and so my kids were never really into technology.
Okay.
And not as much as they are now. I mean, because that's the new normal,
and
right?
it's business, right? Like
exactly.
If you're school business, yeah, it's all digital.
But the goal was to have our kids out in nature, and my boy really thrived on that. He's very similar to how I am. He loves being outdoors. He loves to hunt. He loves cows. He's got his own cows with a neighbor. He helps out a neighbor. One of his best friends he grew up with lives just a couple miles south of us. So he spent a lot of time there through his teenage years, and he did the same thing. He helped them out so much that they gave him a cow, and now he's building his own herd of cows with them.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you
so
go.
it's kind of like the apple didn't fall far from the tree in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
My youngest daughter loves horses. She loves horseback riding. She had a horse that unfortunately passed away this last year, and we just haven't replaced it basically to get her another one. But she loves that side of it. But my oldest daughter was still more of always wanted to be like closer to the city. Like she was, I don't want to say she was resentful when we moved out of town and to an acreage, but it was in another respect that we're so far from anybody that it's really hard for the kids to have and get to friends' houses. I mean, you're 30 minutes from just about anything.
Yeah.
So I think she was a little bit upset when we first moved out there
because that area, are you technically closer to Dawson Creek than Grand Prairie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're from my place here about 28 minutes to Dawson Creek, whereas from my house to here I'm about an hour and 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Neither one of which are like thriving metropolises, right? Oh. Like, but yeah, for a kid who's kind of, you know, growing up more with a little bit of that urban lifestyle, it's a lot to give up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And then as they got older, as you know, when the kids turned 16, they bought their own vehicles and paid their own insurance. So now they're free, right? Now we can go to town and hang out with our friends if we want to. And, and that's and they've all three of them have done that. I've never given my kids I've given my kids a lot. However, you want a vehicle? You're working for it. You're buying it.
Yeah.
I'm not paying your insurance. I'm not paying your gas. If you want this is something you need to work for.
100%.
And my kids have been very, very good that way. Who they're not afraid to work. They're not afraid to get out and get after it and get the things that they want for themselves. Right. And it's not that I can't give it to them and I don't want to give it to them, but I want them to be able to figure it out on their own. So
100%.
You hear that, children? You're going to listen to this.
No, and
that's just it. That's important, right? Like if you're cognizant enough that you realize, okay, like, you know, we have a family and we have some values, and I want to make sure I pass on, you know, these important values that I find important to my kids, because it's not just a matter of I think they're important, but, you know, I think as we go through it, I don't know how growing up was for you, but like you kind of get these when you're young, you're kind of wild and you want to be independent and you make a lot of dumb decisions. For sure. Right. So you get some good guidance, and like you might have had some people in your life who I had some, and not that many, but like people in your life who steered you right. You know, might be your grandfather, might be your father, might be an uncle. You know, those good positive male role models, or people in your family who have these good values, and they kind of push you in that direction. And then you're kind of like, you know, I want to do my own thing and learn my own way. Like I was pretty hard headed growing up, made a lot of the wrong decisions. Yep. But then you get through that and you're like, oh damn, that was really dumb. Why did I do all that? I had these good morals or these good values given to me, and then those become really, really valuable because you see the value that they have, because you've been to the other side of the other side of life, and you've seen kind of like, the doing whatever you want and doing whatever feels good or doing whatever's cool or whatever, you kind of seen where that gets you and you see where that gets other people.
Yep.
And you kind of like, oh, there's no future there. So you kind of get the opportunity to pick up these other things that now have value and kind of go forward with that. So it's really, really cool that you kind of moved on that way, instilled that in your kids.
Yes.
And then kind of proceeded to build that kind of a lifestyle, because doesn't happen as much as I think it should.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that was one thing, I had parents that loved me and instilled the proper things in me to make me successful. So I feel anyway. And that's I wanted to pass that on to my kids. And it was the same way. Like my parents didn't have a lot of money. And if I wanted something, I had to get out and I had to work for it. And and there's not a lot of that I feel anymore. It's there's a lot of entitlement now.
Oh sure, yeah.
And a lot of people don't want to get out and do what they need to do to get what they want. It's more of a...
Well, and I think that's a symptom. It's the whole weak men create hard times. And I think our generation, it's one of the criticisms of our generation is that we were, our parents raised us right. Mm-hmm. And then there's somewhere along the way, it kind of went off the rails.
Yeah.
And because we're such a fortunate society and we're blessed with so much, that we don't make the next generation behind us work for it. And therefore it creates entitlement. They just expect that, oh, well, that's just normal to get that. And it's hard to separate it out to a certain extent, just because it's so prevalent in society, that if all the other kids on the block are getting this thing, whatever it is, maybe it's a tablet or some fancy electronic thing, then there's all that pressure on parents to it's the keeping up with the Joneses. Like,
sure.
All those other kids have it. I guess I better get that for my kid too.
Exactly.
I don't want to be the one shitty parent on the block. But we're not doing them any favors by doing
No,
that either,
and that's the same thing with cell phones. It was like, okay, well, my friends at school have a cell phone. I need a cell phone. Yeah, no, you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Who you calling?
I mean, as when they got older, I mean, kids nowadays, there's 6-year-old kids that have cell phones. And that's the new normal. I mean, that's just the way that the technology.
But if we were smart, we'd be like, you don't need a phone. Here's a knife.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
As a kid, it was nothing. I loved going out with my cousins, and we weren't allowed, we'd get in trouble because we shot a window or something, and so you can't take the pellet guns out. So we'd take a hockey stick and we'd go out and we'd shoot, smash a chicken if we could catch it with a hockey stick, but I love that. We'd go out in the middle of the bush and we'd build tree forts. We'd take an axe.
Oh yeah.
An axe and a tobacco can full of nails and a hammer, and you just go build yourself a lean-to or build yourself a little platform up in the trees. And nobody does that anymore.
No.
Well, very few. And that's the thing is, like, I'm starting to see, a lot of people looking back to, I think from our generation at our childhood, being like, okay, so we had this we were at the cusp of technology, but we came from a generation of kids that weren't allowed inside. Like you were outside and you were doing whatever, and if you did something illegal, then you were going to get in trouble for it. Or stupid, you were going to pay for it. There was consequences to all your actions, but for the most part, you just weren't allowed inside until dinner time, and they God help you if you're late for dinner.
Yeah.
But like, there was very few hard and fast rules, and a lot of room to explore, and it kind of comes out a little differently. Like, I remember during COVID, like, I remember because we lived in a neighborhood with a lot of kids. It was lots of young families and stuff like that. And there was always kids running around. Like if it was like 4 p.m. till like 9 p.m. and a little later on weeknight or weekends in the summertime, like all you'd hear is kids screaming and running and
that
playing.
Big park across from your house, so it was crazy over there.
And then COVID came along and it was like dead silent.
Yeah,
you go outside and like you wouldn't hear anything. You wouldn't hear people. You wouldn't hear kids playing. And you're like, and then after like COVID was over, all the lockdowns were over and everything like that, the kids didn't come back. There was like a handful on bikes, but they didn't come back outside to play. They were hooked on their screen time, right?
Yeah, and my neighborhood's kind of the same now too. You see a lot of kids now. Some of them have grown up, but the you lock these kids away for 2 or 3 years in the basement with like, here's your tablet. You're gonna move to online learning. You're gonna sit in front of a computer all day. It's really hard to replace those habits with with something that's better for them.
Sure.
It's really hard to bust them back out of that.
Absolutely. I 100% agree on that. And it's a different generation, but I mean, I was outside. I was outside until the street lights came on. That was my cue.
Yeah.
The lights switched on. That's your cue to get home. If you're not home and my mom and mom whistles.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
If we were playing hockey or something like that, they'd have to come get us.
Yeah.
Because we weren't stopping until we were playing road hockey or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Good luck. Yeah.
My guess is though that the generation before us probably feels the same way about like when they
absolutely,
like those little fuckers have no idea back in my day.
Yeah, I walked uphill to school both ways in a blizzard, right?
Yeah, I think there is some change. Like I think we are in a place that's different.
It is.
I think we're in some unprecedented territory. For sure. But at the same time, like I do see a lot of people who are actively turning it around and trying to go not necessarily backwards into a better, like we're like, oh, we're gonna make America great again or build back better or whatever. But looking at things and saying like, hey, look, I have these values that I was raised with. And I have a really hard time passing these values on to my kids in an urban setting because there's just so much noise. There's just so much, interference. They can't get what they need. They're moving out further and further away from cities. Are you guys seeing that in your area? Are there people selling, people buying up land out there?
The land out where we're at it's extremely expensive, and I would love to buy another quarter of land, and be able to be self-sufficient as far as the cattle goes, to raise all my own hay and not have to worry about buying from neighbors or stuff like that. But it seems like the next generation of kids that are growing up on farms want to get away from the farms and want to go to the city. They want to get away from it. So farming is it's a dying breed. It's the kids don't want to take over the family farm. Like we will give it to you to carry on the family legacy. Yeah. But they don't want to do it. They want to, move into town and try a different career path than your parents did, So I see that a lot out there, and all the kids are moving away, and it's, I don't know.
I think that's natural, but there are some young people that are seem to be wanting to keep some of those traditional,
some of them for sure,
lifestyle.
Yeah,
but it's not a lot, which is unfortunate because like you say, like land values are high up there. What is it, like 100 a quarter up there or something like that?
No, to buy a bare bones quarter with nothing on it, you're $150,000.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you want something that has any sort of farming infrastructure on it, a hayfield or something where you can grow a decent crop on, you're probably looking at anywhere from $200,000 to $350,000.
Wow,
shit, it's insane.
Yeah, I think that's like you said. It's kind of a normal thing though for kids to. I don't want to say rebel against what they know, but that's basically what it is. They're just like, oh, this is what's normal for me, but there's got to be something better over that other hill. Like that's the that curiosity in us. Like, well, there has to be something more to life. Yeah. But I think look at your situation. Like now you kind of did the same thing and came full circle and came back to it. So I think all these kids, like when you see that at this level, like, they want to move to the city and they want to go do the thing. Those kids will probably come back to the
eventually,
right? And it might take them 10 years, it might take them 15, and hopefully by then it's not like it's too late.
But, or go to town and get a taste of it and realize that it's not for them and come back.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, like until they start putting down roots on their own, and I think that's what's happening a lot with our generation, generations after us, is they're getting to that age where they're having a young family, and it seems to be more like the upwardly mobile. Like because they have that cash money to invest. Like they're like, oh yeah, okay, I could buy a $500,000 house in Grand Prairie, or $500,000 doesn't get you nothing in Vancouver.
Yeah,
right. You'd be looking at 1.5 million. That would buy me a decent sized chunk of land.
Oh man,
that would put me up in a decent house on that land. Yeah. And now I own something I can pass on to my kids. I can take something of value because I can't pass on my $1.2 million condo in downtown Vancouver to my kids. I can, but it's never going to be worth anything.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there is some movement that way. And quite honestly, like when we bought this place, when I looked at the price tag on the house we currently live in, I was like, the place that I could be living in, but we needed to be in town for various reasons.
Yep.
But yeah, that's the goal. Like is to because land is the ultimate gambit, right? It's the ultimate investment.
Yep.
Like that's what's always going to hold its value. it's they're not, like they say, they're not making any more of it, except in Japan, where they just make our islands out of garbage and then live there. Like, there's a resort here. There wasn't a fucking island there last year. Like,
what's that smell?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, here we just build subdivisions on it.
And I was a little disappointed. Had I known the place we bought, if I'd have bought it the year before, I could have paid the same price and had that whole quarter.
Wow!
But in the time that I didn't really, I don't think he was advertising really that it was for sale.
Mm-hmm.
In between that time and the time I bought the house, he had subdivided 2 15-acre parcels off of that quarter.
Okay.
And so I ended up buying the 1 15-acre parcel.
Yeah.
And I kind of kicked myself in the ass for a while for not digging into it a little bit further.
Mm-hmm.
But we were sitting around a fire at a neighbor's. We were out for the weekend at my cousin's ranch, and we were at one of the neighbors there, and we were having a fire. And a gentleman approached me. And he says, "You ever thought about buying out here?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, man, I'd love to buy out here." And he says, "I got a house for sale up the hill." And so we went up and looked at it, and it was almost immediate. Trish was like, "Okay, we're doing this," and we actually rented that house and lived in that house while we were trying to sell our house in Dawson. So we lived in there. We lived out there and paid rent there and a mortgage in Dawson for 6 months before our house sold. So, but in all, that was it was a great move for us, for me personally. I mean, for my mental health.
Oh, for sure.
To be in the city is not. And don't get me wrong, I grew up in the city. That's where I grew up, but it still wasn't for me. I met a lot of amazing people in the city. I mean, some of my longest friends I met in the city. But for me, I need to be out and on my own in the quiet, with my thoughts, right, and not having to listen to the traffic go down the road, or airplanes landing at the airport, or ambulances and police cars, the sirens and train horns. Train horns that's a big one for me. Like,
I can see that.
I don't want to hear it either.
You get all the urban sounds where I'm at.
I get it all down in my end of town, because it's like I live right under the flight path. There's a set of train tracks right there. There's a fire station. It's like, I guess after a while I kind of tune it out.
Yeah, absolutely, and you get used to it, right? So like anything, after repetitiveness, you get a little. It just blends in. So.
Yeah. Well, it's like that with the silence too, right? Someone comes from that urban setting where they're constantly bombarded with noise and electromagnetics, fields and all that stuff. So they get outside, there's nothing, and they start to get like all weirded out.
Yeah.
They get a little antsy. They're like, "Oh my goodness,
take me back."
Where are all my walls? I don't feel safe out here.
Big panic attack.
Was that Braxton McCoy? Braxton McCoy says Sasquatch is the friend for people who are scared to be alone in the woods. He's the imaginary friend for people who are scared to be alone in the woods.
Yeah. I still believe there's Sasquatches out there. I'm sure there are.
Okay, well, shit. Like, what do you got? Because we talked about this. We need a crazy Sasquatch story.
I don't have a Sasquatch story.
Okay.
I've read some stories and I've heard some stories, and
I've never heard of them that far north. I've heard of them down in the.
Well, they're Yetis once you get up there. Right?
Yeah, I guess. But,
okay, well, if you run into anybody in your travels,
that
has some legit, like either the actual clear photograph,
I will send them your way.
A picture of a footprint. A cave full of human bones, whatever, man. We're still waiting for that guy.
Yeah, there isn't much up that way, man. You get up on that Peace River. Yeah, there's there's not a lot of settlement up that way. A whole bunch.
No, and I mean,
not even much for reserves up in that area.
There's quite a I've the last few months I've been doing a little bit of work up in Rainbow Lake and Zama, and and so it's very sparsely populated until you go through those reserves, Paddle Prairie, stuff like that.
Yeah, I worked Zama and Keg River and areas all up there, all up the
Chinchaga. Yeah. But I mean, the further you go north, the more sparsely populated it is. I mean, that's for me, man. I love being out. I love being away from all of it. That's me. That's where I want to be.
I'm surprised you don't have a riverboat yet. You're that close.
So I would love to have a riverboat. I think
that's used to be what everybody I know is doing these days. They're buying jet boats. I'm getting jet boat
envy.
envy.
It's so fucking expensive though.
Oh, I know. I started looking, man. I was
$145,000 for a mid-range jet boat. I mean, that's
entry level is like 55 to 70,000.
Yeah, like currently I'm looking at maybe trading my quad for a little lake boat so I can do a little bit of fishing. I spent a few weekends this winter ice fishing at Snipe Lake.
Yeah, there you go.
What a great spot.
Yeah,
I'd love to have a little lake
boat. It's getting
boat
to be popular. I was hearing they're going to start selling lots out there. It's going to ruin it for everyone.
The kids are gone. They do have a little resort there on the south side where you can buy lake lots and park your holiday trailer
I was
there.
talking to a guy yesterday about that. Yeah,
maybe we'll do that. I mean, we don't have to worry about what the kids are doing on the weekend here fairly shortly. So let's park the holiday trailer out there and get ourselves a boat. The wife, she likes to fish too, but I could see her more sitting in the bow of the boat and reading a book while I'm fishing, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
and hey, sounds very peaceful.
Yeah, they got walleye out there. Eh?
They do.
Oh,
yeah,
great walleye, man! I caught a 11.5 pound burbot while we were out there.
Oh, that's
really
cool.
Yeah, we caught a few keeper walleyes.
Did you eat that burbot?
Oh, we did.
Yeah, man.
We did. It was delicious. Yeah. Poor man's lobster.
I've heard. Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, they're delicious.
Yeah,
I haven't
been out to Snipe Lake. I should check it out this summer.
And it's not a huge lake. Beautiful lake. They've got trophy perch in there. Like, you can get perch in there. They're 15 plus inches. Like, that's a monster. They say if you catch 3 of those, you're a perch master.
That's challenge accepted.
Yeah, that's a title I didn't know existed until now.
I would like to be the perch master.
Yeah, yes, no kidding. Eh? Like, that's and they're delicious fish too. I mean, if you go out there,
I've never thrown a perch back in my entire life.
No, they're delicious. And even if you get the smaller ones, you throw them in a deep fryer.
They're still good.
Like, just chuck the whole thing right in a deep fryer. Huh. Yeah, just eat it like a chip.
Yeah, that's the thing about living up here is there's just not a lot of lakes.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of fishing culture up in Northern Alberta like around here. You get Slave and all that stuff.
Yeah, on the west side of Alberta, there's not. But if you travel closer to the east side, like Lac La Biche, and there's thousands of lakes up there. But now it's getting to the point where these lakes, you can go fish them, but everything has to be released. Now all these lakes, you have to buy tags.
Yeah,
you have to tag your walleye. You're allowed one.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you want to have a fish fry, you're going to have to catch a pretty damn big fish because you're not feeding the family off that one tag.
Yeah, that's just sad, man. That's just sad.
But it's overfishing, and there's a lot of the natives can go and gill net, right? They can go drop gill nets down, so and that takes a pretty good portion of the population out of there.
Yeah.
I mean, I like fishing lake trout. We go lake trout fishing in Cold Lake all the time.
Yeah.
And you get a big female that's full of eggs. Chuck her back. I mean, you want that population to keep going. And
exactly.
And same thing like this. I think they've squashed the commercial fishing now, but they allowed commercial fishing on there for quite a while, and there was a lot of fish pulled out of that lake.
Was it like Lesser Slave had some?
Yeah, Lesser Slave had.
I thought that was kind of weird when I found that out because I was checking out like their was it? I used to have a run of trucking run that went all the way up to like Canuso.
Oh yeah,
and I was like, why are there commercial fishing boats parked out here? I thought that was kind of weird. I talked to like this old guy that worked in a store. I'm like, well, how often these guys go out? And he's like, well, this season, that season. I'm like, there's a fishing season out here? Like, this is Northern Alberta. Like, this didn't make any sense because my old man was a fisherman. My grandfather was a fisherman on the East Coast. And when I think about commercial fishing, or West Coast, but when I think about commercial fishing in Canada, I think about like Newfoundland.
Cod fishing.
Coastal.
Yeah. I went and did some of that last summer.
Oh, yeah.
That was actually like the funnest, fastest. I think the limit was like 15.
Were you just hand lining?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we had rods.
Okay.
But we landed, me and my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law was there. It was like 15 in like less than 40 minutes.
Nice.
Like, and they were monsters. I'll show you some pictures, man.
Yeah,
but
cool.
Just giant monster fish. But like when I think about commercial fishing, that's what I think about. I don't ever think about somebody like trolling a lake somewhere in Northern Alberta for commercial fishing, right?
A bunch of whitefish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I mean, they target a certain species, but obviously you're gonna have
it was a bycatch, right?
Exactly. And I think it's a little bit bigger than people lead on to. I mean, I think they were targeting whitefish in Cold Lake the last couple of years, before they stopped the commercial fish there. But I mean, you're targeting walleye, but you're still getting a lot of jackfish. You're getting the whitefish. You're getting I think there's 9 species of fish in that lake. But
okay.
And I mean, they don't all commingle, I wouldn't imagine, but you're still going to get a pretty decent bycatch.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's not like the ocean where it's just like this endless, bottomless amount of water, right?
Yeah,
like it's a freshwater lake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that seems kind of weird to me for some reason.
Yeah,
I didn't understand it when I still kind of don't. Like, how are we overfishing the lake? Like, I was reading about. You got North American river otters up here, and they'll actually get to a population big enough where they'll actually ruin a fishery.
So I think I mentioned to you, there's river otters that just north of my house.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's a family of them, and then one of them. So there's this big waterway. I don't think it has a name, but it moves probably. I would say 25 miles is in just north of my house, a few miles, and this whole thing runs east and west towards Moonshine Lake, kind of a thing. And one of those river otters had made its way through that and into my buddy of mine's dugout. And he had just put 500 blonde trout in his dugout. So
it was just like a smorgasbord for this one otter.
Exactly. And I think he caught it right away. So I don't think the otter did too much damage to the fish population, but it was out of there pretty quick.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
And they're massive.
Yeah,
like
they're big.
You would not expect. Yeah, I mean, you look at an otter on TV and they look so cute and cuddly.
Usually,
these things are
they're
massive.
The Asian small clawed otters are kind of like the cute ones you see on television. But they get some massive ones. There's some videos of like, what do they call, like giant otters? And they like 100 and some pounds, taking on like jaguars and like lions and like. But they fight as a group. They're like a little gang, right? So they're like gang up on.
You gotta swim with a knife in your trunks, like.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds dangerous, man.
Yeah.
Well, they're essentially they're an apex predator, but all they eat is fish.
Yeah.
Right. So they'll eat some birds, like if they can catch them, but really they're 100% like diet is 100% fish. So like they'll go into like that's what I was reading, because I was like, started reading about the North American river otter, and in Alberta. There's some fishermen, I think, down in like, be more like central Alberta, kind of like on the Red River sort of area. But they'll get a family of otters will move in there and just like wipe out the fishery.
Yeah.
Right. So like we got to get in there. They'll trap them, relocate them, kill them, whatever, because they still do otter pelts.
Yep.
So I love animals, but I also believe in ecology and managing ecology, and I believe in hunting, fishing, trapping.
For sure.
That's just a natural part of how we coexist in nature as human beings.
They've got to be managed.
Yeah, 100%. Because we come in and we upset things as human beings, like just by our mere presence. And if we let nature take its course, which it will anyway, regardless of what we want to do, generally it ends up in populations getting wiped out, and you know, one bad year and a bunch of things starve to death in the wintertime and stuff like that. So excuse me, if we can help things out in any way, I think it's kind of in our best interest to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You're buying your hunting tags and your fishing license every year. You know, that money goes back to the conservation of these animals.
Yeah. Yeah. Hunters are the biggest contributors to ecology, environmentalism, and conservation of wildlife. Absolutely, man. It's part of that whole being outside.
Definitely.
So you living out where you live, do you guys camp?
Not really. I mean, I have a holiday trailer, but if I want to go camping, I literally just go outside and get my holiday trailer and just crash in that. I mean,
yeah, because what are you getting away from?
Yeah, like you got a fire pit.
Yeah,
right. Like that's everything you need to go camping, right? So
we got a big fire pit. We got a lot of wood and furniture around it, and I mean, we do a lot of entertaining at our house. Yeah. I think my midlife crisis was getting a smoker and smoking several different kinds of meat.
Wonderful. I'm not there yet. I'm working on it slowly but surely.
Yeah. So you've probably seen my Facebook posts in the last few weeks where we've done all sorts of crazy stuff.
It, man. Love it.
That's my thing now. So
yeah, we'll have to come check it out one of these days, man.
Absolutely.
I know you were the one who sold my wife on. My wife hated game meat. She was like, no, I don't like any game meat. It's too gamey. I don't like it. We came out to your guys' place. You served up some elk, and she loved it.
Yeah,
she absolutely loved it.
You know, and that's I've done that for so many different people. They're like, oh, what are we eating? Well, it's elk. Well, I don't really like wild game. Well, just give it a try and tell me what you think. I mean, I like to put different spices on and play around with all sorts of different rubs and stuff like that. And I mean, you can make it so it doesn't taste gamey, and to me it doesn't, but to a lot of people it does.
I know most elk, like I said, up here they're grain fed, a lot of them, so like they don't taste. They're not out there eating like willow bark and fucking.
Or here's what I've found so far: something like if it's a roast and it comes out of the slow cooker, it don't matter what critter it is. Most people just gobble it down. They have no idea what it is, and they might ask as an afterthought, well, "What was that?" Most times they don't ask.
Yeah, exactly.
They have no idea.
They just know it was delicious and they wanted to have it. Right?
You just ate some moose, or you just ate some elk, or you just ate some deer. They have no idea.
Anything in a slow cooker and anything that comes out of a smoker, is absolutely delicious.
Yeah. I'll buy it.
We did deviled eggs in the smoker. We boiled eggs and then put the eggs on the smoker and smoked them for half an hour before we made the deviled eggs.
Yeah.
And eggs take smoke so well.
I bet.
They were absolutely delicious.
What kind of smoke are you using?
I used applewood on the last batch.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah. I like to switch it up a little bit. I'm a very good competition blend is my favorite.
Okay.
It's a mixture of all of the different kinds.
Apple, cherry, hickory.
Yeah, hickory. Yeah, yeah. I love it.
I've smoked quite a bit of walleye, and then I think it would be 2 years ago now. I smoked jalapenos.
Oh yeah.
So I cut them all in half. I put them in
So you
there.
make
And
chipotle,
and I smoked them with mesquite.
Nice.
And then I finished them in the dehydrator because like the smoker's pretty like there's a fine line when you're trying to do peppers.
Definitely.
So I smoked them, got the flavor, and then I finished dehydrating them. And then I ground it and made my own chipotle.
Nice.
My God, it's good.
Oh yeah.
It's
I did armadillo eggs.
Yeah.
Have you ever made
no,
those?
I've never had it.
So it's a jalapeno.
Yeah.
That you stuff with cream cheese, and I used a cream cheese and a jalapeno Monterey Jack.
Okay, maybe I have it. You wrap it in bacon?
Wrapped it in pork.
Oh,
Pork burger first, ground pork, and then wrapped it in bacon and threw it on the smoker, and they turned out really well.
Wow.
We did shotgun shells too, and those are really good. However, I'm going to try them a little bit differently. They were still a little bit crunchy when I did them.
Yeah, that's got to be tough because all that pasta's got to cook in the smoker. It's got to be able to take enough moisture from the fat.
So they say to do it two ways. Like you can boil the manicotti first, so it gets a little like just for 2 minutes, and then throw cold water on it to stop the cooking process. Or you can do all the stuff it with the meats and cheeses, and then wrap it with bacon and let it sit for 6 to 8 hours, so that moisture from the meats goes into the shell.
Yep.
And it didn't work so well for me, but a friend of mine afterwards told me that maybe to soak them in tomato juice.
Oh, okay.
That could help too. So
yeah, it's all the joy of playing around with stuff, right?
The options are endless.
Yeah, it's the best midlife crisis. I've been buying briskets.
Oh yeah,
I just buy them now. When I see the other day, I was in a store, in a local grocery store. I think I was like getting something dumb. Like it was one of these things. I was like, oh, I need to stop by and get
Q-tips.
Yeah, it was something just like I need to get one thing, and I walked by their meat case, and I was like, basically past the meat case, on the corner of my eye, I saw this like green sticker or green sign, and I was like, "What's that?" And I looked, and it was like all meat 20% off, and it was a 1 day only St. Patrick's Day meat sale, and I just like backed up 30 feet and grabbed a brisket, threw it over my shoulder, walked to grabbed whatever the hell the other thing it was I needed. I was like, yeah, I just bought a $70 brisket.
Yeah. I've only done one brisket, but man, it turned out so well.
I've done a bunch in the oven. I've never done them on the smoker. I don't have a smoker. I've turned my gas grill into a smoker a few times and done ribs and stuff like that. It takes a long time.
I got this shitty little smoker that you put the
old chief, big chief smoker.
Big chief or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or is that beef jerky? Whatever it is, but
you
put the little pan of chips. But it does work. Like I've done walleye on there. It comes out amazing. Man. It's fantastic.
Yeah, smoked fish is really good. Yep. Yeah, or a cold smoked cheese.
Ooh, oh yeah, delicious. I've heard of that.
Yeah, delicious.
Jesus, now I'm going to be fucking starving.
Good problems to have.
Yeah,
man. Good problems to have. Right on. So you're saying all your kids are out of the house?
Just about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Riley is the last. She graduates this year, and then she is planning to move down to the island. She's going to live with her sister down there and go to school down there. So I imagine there'll be frequent trips to the island. Now, I've only been there once, but I've
got some family out there, man. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Yeah, we went not last August, but the previous August. We went down there for 10 days, and we were fortunate. The weather was 30 degrees every day while we were there.
Oh wow!
I got to get out on the ocean and do some salmon fishing, which I've never done before, and that was fantastic.
Yeah.
You would be surprised how much a 15-pound salmon fights in comparison to the fish that we get up here.
Sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, fishing in the ocean is like
I need to get away from sharks. Thing.
Is a whole different thing. Man.
Yeah.
Or fishing on the Queen Charlotte's was like that. It was just like you never really knew what was on the other end of that hook till you pulled it up.
Exactly.
It's like something different every time. It's like, oh, there's a flounder, here's a halibut, here's a sand shark, these like little dogfish.
Yep.
They fight like mad, man. It's like it's a lot similar to catching like a big pike.
Yeah.
Like they fight the same way, man.
Yeah.
But a buddy of mine, he goes up to northern Saskatchewan to fish. Oh, man. He's showing me these like these northern pike they're catching up there. This massive, like 29 pounds,
30-pound fish.
Oh yeah, northern Saskatchewan is probably some of the most amazing fishing in the world.
Yeah. They I think they drive in, but it's usually fly-in resorts, and that they go up there and like I was on a moving job years ago. We moved somebody up there, and we drove in at night from wherever it was, Prince Albert or something like that, north. We went way north. And I remember we drove in at night, and woke up in the morning, slept in the truck, crashed in the truck, wake up out of the sleeper. I get out to take a leak, and I'm like, what the hell? And it's like this most beautiful evergreen forest, this huge A-frame log house looking out over this like pristine lake. And I'm like, where in the hell am I, man? Like, this isn't Saskatchewan, man. And Saskatchewan was all those wheat fields I drove through for 2 days to get here.
Yeah.
Like, and it was just like this, like, total alpine, beautiful wilderness.
The whole north of it, it's all rock. It's all shield country. There's a billion lakes up there, full of fish.
Tons,
it's
giant,
gorgeous.
deep ass cold lakes.
Yeah.
Like,
my uncle went last year, and he went gold mining up in the Yukon for 6 weeks or something like that, and worked up there, and got a call from a guy and says, "Hey, I have a fishing / hunting camp in northern Saskatchewan, and I'm looking for a manager to come out and possibly do a little bit of meat cutting. He's a meat cutter by trade." And possibly do a little.
What do they got in northern Saskatchewan? It was mostly mule deer.
Bears. This was a bear. So he does have moose allocations. So the guy has 6 moose tags or whatever for the fall.
That makes sense.
But it was primarily a black bear camp.
Okay.
And a fishing camp. But you drive there, and then you get on a boat, and you take a boat for an hour and a half to get into this lake. And this lake has got like 500 islands in this lake.
Wow.
Yeah. So so when nobody was in camp, he'd just take one of their boats and putt around. He's got a great big Newfoundlander dog. Mm-hmm. Throw the dog in the boat. He'd just putt around. He'd just fish and fish and fish. And that's what he did in his off time. And said it was just beautiful once you get past the mosquitoes. Because once you get up there, holy shit.
Sure.
You see 4 or 5 mosquitoes walking away with a calf moose.
Yeah, I believe it, man.
It's not bad when you're on the water.
It's not too bad. I mean, it's
horrible.
Relative to where you are to land, right?
Yeah.
If you're out in the middle of the lake, I mean, the mosquitoes aren't typically going out there because there's no blood to suck out there.
I've worked in northern Alberta in the summertime, man. I remember surveying out in a gas plant, so up in your neck of the woods up there, and I was standing like up to my waist in a swamp, and I think the party chief I was working just didn't like me. He's like, I need a shot over there, and I'm like, yeah.
Thanks, asshole.
Yeah, just standing like up to my chest or up over my waist in the swamp, and then looking at my coveralls, like the blue Nomex, and it was gray. It looked like I was wearing a gray fur suit because there was so many mosquitoes, man. And if only like 1 in 100 got through and bit me, I was still getting bit 1,000 times.
When we were kids, like there was lots of, well, I'm sure there still is, there's lots of horse flies up there. So what happens, you get bit by a horse fly, which would take a big chunk out of you.
Yep.
Like it looked like somebody like, I don't know, like, a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch patch of skin missing. So there's a piece of you gone and bleeding. And then it would get covered in those little black flies. So you're like, and you'd be like, you'd have this big lump on you where you got, a big chunk missing. And then you'd get attacked by black flies and the mosquitoes. Like there's seasons up there where it is maddening. Yeah. As a kid, you sort of get over it after a while. You kind of, after growing up in high level, like I'd be down in the Crow's Nest Pass and people would be, we'd be out having a fire, like a bush party or whatever, a get together, and people would be bitching about the bugs. Man, I never got bit a single time down there. I never noticed a single mosquito the entire time I lived in the mountains down there.
Yeah, I bet, man.
7 years of I never saw a single bug or never was bothered by one.
Yeah, well, they're about the 16th of the size of there up north. Too.
Sure, but I don't even recall ever getting bit. Oh, Maybe I did, but it was completely
so
different.
minuscule compared to
what's notable. I got a mosquito bite.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, one? Dude, I remember coming out of the bush. We ran that course a couple of years ago. Yeah. I had 150 on one hand.
I remember doing this. Like, out in
the bivy sack, sleeping in the bush. The only part of me not covered by the bug nets and stuff like that was my hands. And one night in the bush, man, and both my hands were like, I think I counted 150 on one hand, like 100 plus on the other, just mosquitoes.
Oh,
like
that's crazy,
man.
Yeah, and drive you nuts for the next couple of days.
Yeah, the humming, trying to sleep with that, this like sleeping next to a generator, so loud, man. Yeah, crazy country we in, but yeah, definitely want to do get out and fill an elk tag this year.
Absolutely.
Definitely got to put something in the freezer.
You're more than welcome. No, we got lots of empty rooms in the house now, so come and stay for a couple of days.
Might wrangle up a posse and come visit you.
Absolutely.
Got a couple of good homeboys. We got to get out and do a hunt camp this year.
For sure. For sure. I'd love to do it.
Yeah, for sure, man. You bow hunt at all?
I have a bow, and I really got into it. Ryan and I used to go out to camp every year, and I haven't been able to make it work the last few years. And then I did bow hunt the year before that. Last year I couldn't. I was moving a washing machine of all things and pulled a bunch of muscles in my elbow.
Oh, okay.
So I couldn't pull the bow back. So the plan is to start shooting this summer and get back into it this fall.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, that's that nice early season, right where you're at.
yeah, that's
like
my dream is to kill a bull elk with my bow. I've
Yeah.
been so close and got to the point where I've been so frustrated that I put the bow out and then I pull out the Browning A bolt and I shoot a bull elk at 15 yards. Like,
Right at bow distance.
yeah, exactly. It's just, it drives me nuts because it's happened to me a half dozen times. It's like,
oh wow.
I get so frustrated not being able to get close enough to the animal. So the bow goes away and the rifle comes out and I'm shooting animals at 15,
maybe,
20, 30
Stones
yards.
throw distance,
maybe that's
yeah.
just your lucky rifle. Don't discount
maybe,
it, man.
maybe.
Yeah, exactly. There's guys with worse stories, man.
Yeah.
You're just paying a lot of money to go on hunts, so they're coming back with nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. I've got a buddy who went up to the Yukon. Him and his dad went up last fall, and we're both fortunate enough to shoot massive moose up there. So, but that's an expensive hobby.
Yeah.
I mean, once you get up there and you get into the outfitters and you want to shoot a 50 or 60 inch bull moose or 60 inch, probably 60 inch plus, I would say up there.
Yep.
But you're probably looking at $30,000 to get in there for a week. You know?
Oh yeah, just to getting the tags and getting outfitted to get up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know a guy who's been over to Africa a couple of times, and the trip to Africa is $60,000.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's
insane.
but that's rich man money.
Yes,
man.
absolutely. Yeah,
Safari hunting. Is
I'm not. I will never do that in my life, not unless
Yeah.
the lucky lottery numbers show up too. But
I don't
Yeah,
have
exactly.
$60. Never mind $60,000. It's not going to happen for this guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing about our area up here. It's it's fantastic hunting. It's really good people.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more. Not necessarily more outfitters and stuff like that, but I'd like to see this area get a little more shine for what it has.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to a podcast here with Cam Haynes and a couple other guys here recently, and they were talking about how the number of hunters has gone up for the past few years, but now it's starting to go back down, kind of post COVID, and that's one of those things. There's not much lift that I really consider Canadian heritage, but that hunting, fishing, trapping, that actually is Canadian heritage.
Oh, for sure.
Right. That's what brought people out this far. That's what the people who were here before were doing. That's just part of the land here, and it gets you out. You get to see the country that we live in. You get to see the creatures that live there, how that ecology works, and it breaks all these dumb stereotypes about hunting, about firearms, about the people that live out there. And it's just like that. Like, as I started to get more interested in where my food comes from, what I found was a lot of really good people.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that are all kind of out there living this lifestyle with really, really good values, really tight knit communities, really good families. And they're really keeping this place together more than we know.
For sure. And the majority of those guys are great people, and they're in it for the conservation. And then you get the odd guy that's a bad apple who ruins it for everybody else. And now a spot where you would go and you would love to hunt, now you can't go because somebody was an asshole and drove their truck through a farmer's canola field to get to where they wanted to hunt.
Yeah,
It's unfortunate that there's people that do that. Like, I have nothing but respect for anybody who lets me hunt on their property. Like, I've literally gone to farmers and said, hey, I would love to get permission from you to hunt on your land. I will help you with your cattle. I'll jump in your tractor and I'll plow that field out for you. And most guys are like, really? You'd be willing to do that for me for permission? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Tell me what I need to do.
Yeah.
And it's like, I appreciate that you're offering to do that for me. You go ahead and you hunt.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's awesome, man.
Yeah. And I've been in spots like where I live right around my house there's a lot of, you can't get permission. And it's crazy. Like, I've been walking down the road and seen Jeeps driving through the field. Like, stop the guy. Like, what the hell are you doing here?
Yeah.
Oh, I got permission from so-and-so. Well, this isn't his land and he lives 7 miles that way. So
yeah, exactly.
Where did you get permission? Oh, he told me I could be on this land. Well, I know that he didn't tell you that. So fuck off. Right.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
But but for the most part, 95% of the guys that are out there are respectful
Yeah, I would agree. It's always it's the same thing with any like branding. Like pick your favorite truck brand. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
You'll always hear about the one that's a hunk of shit that blew up on the internet. Everyone's going to talk about it, but you won't hear about the 10,000 that ran just fine that day. Hunters are the same way.
Exactly.
For the most part, there's so many good ones, good conservationalists. Generally speaking, very good people.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, right on, man. I don't know. I think I've reached the end of my questions.
Okay.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
This is awesome.
That's been fantastic.
I was a little nervous coming into it, wondering what it was going to be about, but this has been great, man. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose is to come in here and have those conversations. There's something about bringing somebody in, having a live conversation, and where we start to talk about their life.
Yeah. And
then once we start peeling back some of the layers of the onion, and we start getting on, all the different rabbit holes we kind of go into. Like I said, there's some value there. I think there's something that comes out of there, something a little bit like wisdom.
Yeah.
That is worth recording. It's worth passing on to whoever decides to listen.
Yeah. No, this is great. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome sitting here bullshitting with you.
Yeah.
Super happy, super stoked to meet you because Dave just sent me a text the other day. He's like, hey, man, my homeboy's going to be in town. You want to do a podcast? I'm like, fuck yeah. Like, I'm always down to sit here and, and have the conversation. So, yeah, it's been fantastic.
Cool. Very cool. So we got a little bit of bills to pay, to speak.
So finally, I actually had to write all this down at the beginning. But anyways, we were on Spotify, YouTube, and now we're on Apple Podcast. And you can find us on Instagram and X. All the links will be in the description below.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you've been hearing me read these things from this book and you want to pick up the collection, you can do so at www.hocusgray.com or on Amazon, where all cheap books are sold.
Awesome.
Thank you so much again for coming out, man.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks for sharing your life, sharing your wisdom. We really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, it's been great.
All right, take care.
Cool.